Before my world exploded, I thought about looking you up to take a job at the Houseman Foundation with me. It doesn't matter if I was good enough or not." She didn't allow herself to dream anymore. "The truth is they came after me because my sister was investigating them. A representative from Kronberg prodded me to apply, and that's not how they operate." "But they do," Rebecca insisted. "They recruited me." "You are a star in the neuro world. Everyone knows you'll get a Nobel one day," she pointed out. "I was in the top 15% of my class at a state school. I had good grades and references, but nothing stellar. I should have realized there was something odd about it. But all I could think of was I would get to work with some of the best doctors in the world, and I would get to do it close to my sister. Hell, my German wasn't even very good. Though it was much better now. Living in Bavaria and having a desperate need to fit in had made her fluent. She'd spent long hours perfecting her accent, so no one would question the odd shop girl. Except she didn't have a reason to hide, according to Solo. They'd known where she was the whole time. It made her sick to her stomach. She'd wasted years, and they could have taken her when they wanted to. It was one of the reasons she'd decided to come in. That and the fact that no matter how much she denied it, she'd wanted to know if Stephen Reeser was still alive. She still wasn't certain, and that was a problem. Solo had her tablet in front of her, and her fingers worked the monitor. "I'm sending you all the report detailing the interviews I've already done with Ronnie and her mom. She wasn't directly threatened with her sister, but I think it's obvious the bigwigs at Kronberg are still worried Katie Croft left behind information Ronnie could use against them." "It's been years," Ronnie said. "If I had something, I would have used it by now. I would have used it to protect my daughter."
"What exactly made you decide to hide your identity? Was it just the threat, or was there something else?" Taggart asked.
She didn't like to think about that day. She hated it now because it might have been the day she'd made a huge mistake. Hope MacDonald fired me herself. It was the last time I saw her.
"Can you walk us through that timeline?" Tag asked. "We've got some information on her movements, but I would like to hear it from your side."
"It was a week later Stephen left," she explained. "This was a week after I saw her in Paris. She came to where Stephen and I were staying, and explained that he'd taken a job with her in Argentina.
And I was there."
Robert was watching her intently. "Yes. I think she brought you in case I freaked out on her or something." She'd asked for honesty, and she intended to give it back to them, even when it hurt. She showed up with Robert, though he didn't say anything.
"Yeah, we weren't there to talk," Robert agreed. "You realize, of course, that I don't remember this at all."
She nodded. "You didn't do anything beyond stand behind MacDonald, and when she asked you to take Stephen's laptop and tablet, you made sure you had them. Like I said, she told me Stephen wouldn't be coming back to Germany with me. She basically told me I was stupid to have believed that Stephen truly wanted me. She implied that Stephen was using me to make her jealous, and then she said she would see me back at Kronberg."
Robert leaned forward. "Tucker, just because she said it doesn't mean it's true. You know we've never found anyone who would say you were her lover." She glanced toward Tucker, and he'd gone a pasty white, his eyes on the table in front of him, as though he needed a moment to gain his composure.
"I never saw MacDonald be affectionate with you," Rebecca said. "Not once. I did see her flirt with a lot of men, but not you."
"We could have been hiding it, since she was my boss," Tucker said, his voice tight.
"Or she could have been lying, so Veronica was so angry she didn't ask questions," Knight pointed out.
"We all know she was good at manipulating people," Taggart added.
"It worked." She was starting to wonder if she hadn't made a horrible mistake. "I didn't ask any questions. I went back to work and hoped I didn't bump into Stephen again."
"Why were you in Paris with him?" Taggart asked.
Because I thought we were starting a relationship. He told me he was interviewing for a job that would get him out of Kronberg. He said he wanted to go back to the States, and this job would make that happen for him. We spent the night together at an apartment he said he used when he was in Paris. She's given me a general description of the place, Solo offered. It was close to the Tuileries garden, so that narrows it down a bit. I'm hoping I can find the actual building, because I would love to know who owned the apartment.
That would be helpful. Taggart turned his attention back to Ronnie. So you spent the night with him, and he went to his interview the next morning. Did he say anything before he left? Did you go with him? Were you supposed to meet him? He didn't tell you who he was interviewing with?
If he was close to taking a job in the States, he would have been far along in the interview process, Rebecca mused. At the level he would have been looking at, he likely would have multiple interviews. He could have done the initial interviews on the phone or over the internet, but there would be several in-person meetings. Had he been gone a lot in the weeks prior?
She had never thought about that.
No. Stephen was married to his job. I was there for almost a year, and he didn't even take weekends off. MacDonald would come and go, but Stephen was always there. It was a surprise that he wanted to go to Paris for the weekend. He left the apartment before dawn. At the time, I didn't think much about it. He was always a careful man, and he was never late, so I thought he was being proactive. But now that I think about it, he didn't have a suit with him. All he had was a duffel bag. He wouldn't have carried a suit in a duffel bag.
I'm not a fan of suits, Tucker said with a weak laugh. So I was obviously lying about what I was doing. I think we can say that's a safe bet, Taggart agreed. He was gone for too long, wasn't he? Did you try his cell?
I did. Many times, she admitted. I got worried when he didn't show up that afternoon. Then MacDonald and Robert were there. She basically threw a bunch of lady aggression in my face, told me she pitied me, and walked away with all of Stephen's things. I shouldn't have let her take his stuff. She'd missed a chance. She should have hidden his computer the minute she'd seen MacDonald walking up to the building. Her sister would have. Her sister wouldn't have been so worried about her tender feelings that she'd stopped thinking at all. You should have done exactly what she wanted you to do. Tucker leaned her way, a serious look on his face. If MacDonald thought for a second that you knew something you shouldn't have, she would have taken action. She would have either killed you or wiped your memory and left you with nothing. I'm glad you gave it up. You being safe was all that matters. The man knew how to say all the right things. He was looking at her, his face so earnest. As she'd watched him last night and this morning, she'd been struck by how open he seemed. Where Stephen had been shuttered emotionally, only giving out glimpses of what he was feeling when they were alone, Tucker was an open book. His emotions played across his face with no mask to hide them.
Thank you for all the feels, Tucker, Taggart said with a shake of his head. You're going to let her walk all over you. Back to the actual matter at hand. When did you see MacDonald next?
About a week later. Everyone was making notes now. She'd spent so much of the last few years of her life trying to go unnoticed that being the center of attention was unnerving. It was 2 days before my sister died. I hadn't talked to Katie in weeks, though. I'd been ducking her calls because I didn't want to explain how I'd screwed up my love life. I was pretty depressed. MacDonald showed up at the lab, and I asked if Stephen was with her. I wasn't asking because I wanted to see him. I wanted to avoid him, to tell you the truth. I was still pretty raw. She had the angriest look in her eyes. She told me he was done with me and walked away. I took that to mean I was fired. I'd asked to move teams, and they'd told me no. I'm ashamed to say I walked out. I was unnerved. That seems sudden. Is there anything else you remember about her that day? Knight stared at her,
as though he could see inside her head.
She wasn't herself.
She could still see the crazy look in MacDonald's eyes.
I know she'd spent a lot of time upstairs in the corporate offices. When she came down, she didn't talk to anyone but me. She ignored everyone else, even people who tried to talk to her. There was something else.
Something that hadn't seemed important at the time.
Someone said her father was with her. You didn't tell me that.
Solo's eyes had widened.
I'm sorry, I didn't think it was important until now, she explained. And I didn't see him, but I remember Arthur Dwyer talking about it. He was in some of those meetings. You should talk to him. I would be surprised if he isn't still at Kronberg. I think he took over for Stephen.
Rebecca sighed.
We did talk to him, and he didn't bother to mention he was in those meetings. He did tell us he saw you with Stephen at the airport. How would he have seen us? That didn't make sense. He said he was at the airport, Rebecca replied. There were some things she definitely remembered. Oh, he couldn't have been. We left on a Friday afternoon. We went straight from work. Arthur got angry with me because I wouldn't stay and help him with an experiment he was running. I know he turned in his findings, so there's no way he was strolling around the airport. That particular experiment would have taken him all weekend, and he would have to babysit it. And there was no way he would have seen us together at the office because Stephen made sure we left at 2 different times. Any time I saw Stephen outside of work, he was careful no one would catch us.
Taggart grinned, a baring of teeth that could only be called predatory. Oh, I'm interested in talking to Dwyer myself. I would love to know why he lied about that. I think we'll have to go a bit deeper on that man. But thank you, Ms. Croft. This helps us with a timeline. Did you know anyone who spent time in Argentina?
There were 3 other members of her original team who went with her, but I wasn't close to any of them. After MacDonald left, Arthur's group then became the lead team working neurology at the Munich office. I never talked to anyone at Kronberg again.
She looked around, because there was a tension in the air she didn't understand.
What? From what we can tell, everyone who went with MacDonald to Argentina is dead,
Rebecca said quietly. Or mind-wiped, Tucker added. When you look at it that way, I was lucky. You're the only person who worked directly with MacDonald in those last days who still has a heartbeat and a functioning brain, Taggart pointed out. And now you're out in the open.
And someone figured out where my London safe house is the same day I moved you to it,
Solo pronounced grimly. Someone was looking for her. She'd placed them all in danger. Again. Chapter 5. Tucker knocked on the door to Ronnie's apartment and hoped she would actually answer. The morning's conference had turned into a whole afternoon of questions from Ian and Damon and Solo. Ezra had rejoined the group and gone over every second of those last few weeks. Not every second. She'd glossed over the time they'd spent in bed. According to her, they hadn't left the apartment in Paris the whole day they'd spent there. He was fairly certain they hadn't been watching television. They'd been busy making a baby. Violet. The door came open, and Ronnie's eyes went wide.
Hey, is everything okay? They said they didn't need me again until tomorrow.
I wanted to come by and see if you needed anything. He held up the box he'd had delivered moments before. Like a pizza. I figured you hadn't had time to stock your kitchen. She breathed through her nose, and a dreamy look came over her face.
Tell me it's pepperoni. American pepperoni, and not those pepper things you get when you order pepperoni over here.
This is all American pepperoni, and it's from my favorite pizzeria in the city, he explained. Trust me, we've tried them all. One of the cool things about losing your memory is getting to try all the foods again, because you have no idea what you like. Although I tried kale, and that wasn't so cool. I decided to discount all hardcore greens at that point, but I did experiment with about 1,000 ways to eat a pizza. She took the box and turned, leaving the door open, so we followed her inside. And stopped, because Violet was in a playpen, her hands on the top of the wall and her whole body bouncing. She was wearing a pair of footy pajamas, her hair in pigtails, and she was so cute his heart nearly stopped. This was why Tag kept Charlotte pregnant all the time. He'd been around a lot of kiddos, but Violet was different. Violet was his. Her mother didn't know it yet, but she was his, too. I was hoping we could talk. Didn't I do that all day? She disappeared into the kitchen. I wanted to talk about Violet. He stared down at her. There were a couple of toys at her feet, including a worn stuffed bunny that had definitely seen better days. The vision of an old stuffed bear hit him. He could see it. They'd called the bear Stanley. It had been his older brother's. His brother. He had a brother, and his name was... Hey, maybe you should sit down. Are you having another episode? He shook it off, or tried to. His head was starting to pound. His daughter was staring up at him as if she knew something was wrong. He didn't want to scare her. I should go. Sit down. Her hand found his, and she tugged him back toward the couch. Let the memory go. That's what Rebecca said you need to do. Let it go, and think about something that's happened to you since you came here. She'd asked Rebecca about her protocols when it came to him. Maybe she was curious. She was a doctor. It was one of the things that had brought them together. He loved how she worked with the people around her, but he believed firmly that she didn't belong in research. She would be so good with patients. They would love her. They would trust her. You're still thinking about it, she said in a low tone. He was on the couch next to her, and suddenly she eased him down, letting him lay his head in her lap. A soft palm eased over his forehead, and then he could feel her fingers on his scalp. Yeah, he wasn't thinking about the past anymore. Sorry. He hadn't meant to break down in front of her, but that seemed to be all he could do. The memories are coming faster now, but they're not complete. They're little visions. I can remember that I have a brother, but I don't remember his name. You called him Ace, though I got the feeling that was a nickname. Ace. His brother. Their mom called them Ace and Bub. What else did I say about him? Not much. You didn't talk about your family, except to tell me they would like me, and I would meet them when we went back to the States. Her fingers moved over his scalp as she looked down at him. Is it any better? He closed his eyes, letting himself simply be in the moment. I'm getting there. Thank you. He didn't want to break their contact. You wanted to ask about Violet? What do you want to know? Everything. Were you mad when you found out you were pregnant? He meant everything. He wanted to know it all, the good, the bad, and the rightfully angry. Oh, I was beyond angry. I was also scared. My sister had been killed, and I had gotten that horrible message that I could be next. I realized I couldn't go home. Why? I would think it would be easier to hide in the States. I was afraid to get on a plane, to go through an airport. It's so easy to find a person. I was scared to go anywhere with security cameras. My mom had friends in a small town in the Bavarian Alps. They found us a house, and we spent a lot of money getting not-so-legal documentation. An EU passport is a powerful tool.
I can pretty much run anywhere on the continent if I need to, without too much security.
So Violet was born in Germany?
Yes. She was born in a small hospital in Oberammergau. I worked there in a shop, she explained. Mom worked at a grocery. When I gave birth, I got paid time off. It was nice. I liked being home with Vi, but I want to work again. I want to go home and get back on track.
What was she like?
She was an easy baby. At least that's what my mom tells me. Violet rarely cried. When she was born, I had to ask the doctor if she was healthy because she was so quiet. They put her in my arms, and she looked up at me, and I realized we were going to be okay. As long as we had each other, we would be all right.
He turned and looked at her. Tears shimmered in his eyes. I didn't leave you, Ronnie.
You remember?
No. But I know I didn't want to leave you. I know deep in my gut that I was trying to get us out. I can't promise you that I wasn't involved in what MacDonald did. I pray I wasn't, and I had some different reason I was there, but I know everything changed when I met you. I was getting out. I was getting us both out. I can't remember the hows or the whys, but when I get a vision of that day, I wasn't leaving you behind.
Are you better now?
And his sweet time was done. He eased himself up. Much. Thank you. You should eat. She stood, smoothing down her t-shirt.
Yeah. Do you want some? These are nice apartments. Does everyone who works here live here too?
Good. She wasn't kicking him out. I would love a slice. And yes, for the most part. There's Nick and Haley, Brody and Steph, Damon and Penny, of course, though they also have a country house they spend time at. Nina lives in a single. So does Walt. I share with Rob. I guess I don't anymore since he got married. Without me, it's rude. Who gets married when his best friend is in a coma? Can I pick her up? Ronnie set 2 plates on the table and hesitated for a moment.
I guess so. Sure. She's doing the grabby hands thing, so she'll likely insist now.
He hesitated. She's so small. Ronnie moved in, bending over and lifting Violet into her arms.
She's really not. She's tall for her age, and she's a solid kid. She's not delicate, as you will learn when she decides to climb all over the place. You can hold her.
He found his arms suddenly full of sweet baby girl, who immediately started patting his face.
You should watch her. She will stick her finger up your nose, Ronnie said with a grin. Do you want a water? I would offer you a beer, but the lady who brought us bread and milk and stuff did not bring beer, and that is a mistake when it comes to my mother. She's way easier to get along with if she's had a few.
No, baby. He gently moved Vi's finger away from his nose and evaded her eye poke. Your mom does not like me, I take it. And yes, I'll have a water. And yes, I'll get you some beer. She opened the pizza box with obvious relish.
I never drank beer until I went to Germany. Now I love it.
There's a bar downstairs, but it's not open tonight. He sank down into his chair, Vi standing on his lap.
Nose. Nose.
His daughter grinned at him. He touched her nose. Violet's nose.
She's learning parts of the body, Ronnie explained. I'm teaching her in English and German. Die Nase.
Vi touched his nose again.
Nase.
She already speaks more languages than me. How did I work in Germany and not pick up any German?
Because everyone spoke English in the city. I've been out in the country. Almost everyone speaks English there, too, but if you want to fit in, you speak German. And my mom hates everyone. Everyone except Violet and me. But she does hate you in particular, since you deflowered her darling girl and left her knocked up.
Violet was trying to climb up his body. Not willingly. I mean, I was totally willing to do the knocking up part, not the leaving part. Wait, what? Deflowered? He'd been her first? She'd been mature to be a virgin. She'd gone all the way through medical school. Had he been a virgin? Violet was a monkey determined to sit on top of his head. He gently pulled her down and she started right back up again. Ronnie was grinning, her face lit with amusement.
Well, she's my mom. She didn't know about all my fun times in college. I'm teasing you, Tucker.
He liked how she was looking at him, how she was teasing him. All day she'd been somber as she answered all the questions the different operatives asked. It was good to see her more relaxed.
Violet tried to haul herself up by his hair.
He winced and stood.
She really likes to climb. Told you.
She sobered as he started to pace.
What do we do now? I came here because I thought this was going to be over. But it seems like someone is still watching me. How do I handle it? I don't even know who it is. Obviously, I think it's probably Kronberg. But I can't walk in and ask to speak to management.
He'd wondered if she'd been planning on leaving as soon as she could.
You stay with us while we figure out what's going on. We're trained investigators. I assure you Jax is already working on the problem. If for some reason my team has to move, you stay here and be safe. Why would you have to move? Ear! Violet tugged on his ear. How to explain this to her and come out sounding at all like a man who should be trusted with a child? After I became Tucker, I joined the group of MacDonald's men. At some point, Kronberg turned on her, or she turned on them, and she needed cash. We were trained to rob banks. Ah, so you're a wanted man. She reached for her second slice. Solo mentioned something about Interpol. Are you trapped in this building? He was trapped in so many ways. I don't go out a lot. But earlier this year we realized that the agency was starting to apply pressure. We needed to move around to keep the heat off Damon. We spent some time in Colorado, and then Toronto and Munich. I just realized everywhere we go, one of us gets married. It's only me now, since... Well, Munich was hard on my team. They'd lost Sasha. They'd lost Dante. Yes, he'd betrayed them all, but he'd been around for so long it was odd to not see his face. Everything was changing. His brothers were moving on and finding their lives. They were all married, and he knew Jax and River were talking about having a baby. He had a baby. She was currently laying her head on his shoulder and yawning. So, at any moment you could be arrested. He was such good boyfriend material. Yes, and you should know that. If anyone comes for me, you pretend you don't know who I am. If we're together, I'm a guy you recently met and you know nothing, and thank you, officer, for saving me from the dangerous man. That seems cold. No, it's smart. You're more important. He found a rhythm that seemed to have Vi calming down. She patted his chest, and her eyes closed. Ronnie stared at him for a moment. I wish I could believe you're real. He chuckled. I just told you I'm wanted by a whole bunch of different authorities, and you worry I'm not real? I have no real memory of my past. One of my fun nicknames is Dr. Razor, and according to Rebecca, I could pass out or have a cardiac episode at any moment. I'm pretty fucking real. I said fuck. I'm sorry. Don't listen to me, Violet. They called you Dr. Razor because anyone who got into a verbal argument with you felt like they'd been in a knife fight, Ronnie explained. You were kind of an ass. They like to say you could cut pretty deep with words. You didn't need a scalpel. If only he could believe that was the true reason he had that nickname. I cared about you, Ronnie continued quietly. I think I might have been in love with you. But you hurt me so badly. I understand that you might not have meant to do it, but you also didn't tell me anything was wrong. You did lie to me. You weren't going on an interview. He wished he knew what he'd been thinking at the time. He had one real thought. I hope I was trying to protect you. But you left me ignorant. You left me so I couldn't protect myself because I didn't know what was going on. I still don't know what's going on. I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I think I was trying to protect you. Or maybe I was trying to protect me. Maybe I didn't want you to know all the things I'd done. I can't be sure, and I might never be sure. But I promise I'll do everything I can to help you and our daughter. I made a mistake back then. I won't make the same one again. I'll tell you everything. You don't know me. That sounds like a dangerous thing to do. That's what she didn't understand. But I do. I know you. I don't recall your middle name or where you were born, but I know you're good. I know you like to help people. I know that when I kissed you, I felt safe. Isn't that odd? I can't remember the first time I kissed you. I couldn't tell you where it happened or what you were wearing, but I know how I felt. My middle name is Anne, and I was born in Galveston, she said with a little smile. I don't have a middle name. I'm not even sure if Tucker is my first name or my last name, he admitted. Honestly, it's probably not your name at all, Ronnie replied, relaxed again now that they had gotten the emotional stuff out of the way. But I like it. Somehow it suits you. It's way better than Razor. Yikes. He'd never liked it either, and he wondered if that dark part of his soul was still lurking somewhere. The door came open, and Sandra Croft strode in. She was dressed for the gym, her toned body in leggings and a tank top. She stared at him, one hand on her hip, before shifting her focus to Ronnie. Did you listen at all today? He's got a red notice from Interpol. Ronnie pushed her chair back. For something he didn't really do. Well, he did it, but then had his memory wiped, so I don't know that it should count. Do you want some pizza? After a 2-hour workout? Sandra's brow had risen in an aristocratic way. Of course. I'm starving. You're sure he's okay with Violet? He's already wrapped around her finger, Ronnie replied, getting another plate. Sandra looked him over as though sizing him up and finding him wanting. That would be an excellent way to get into your good graces and potentially use you. Mom, she did that thing where she tried to put her finger in every orifice of his face, then pulled his hair and basically treated him like a jungle gym, and he was perfect with her. She's now drooling all over him, and he hasn't even tried to put her down. He's cool. There was drool? It was all good. He was typically not great with bacteria, but they shared DNA, so Violet's drool was basically his. I wouldn't hurt my daughter. You hurt mine, Sandra replied simply. Yeah, Sandra was going to be a hard sell. I also brought her a pizza. Sandra stared at him, and then the faintest hint of a smile broke through her grimness. Well, then all is forgiven, I suppose. She held out her hands. She's down for the count. I'll put her in bed. And that better be pepperoni pizza. He had zero illusions that Sandra was suddenly okay with him,
but maybe they could reach a ceasefire. American style. He handed off his sleeping daughter and turned to Ronnie as Sandra disappeared into the larger of the two bedrooms. Does she have everything she needs?
My mom? All she needs is a utility knife and a water bottle, and she can take over the world. The paranoia is simply a part of her soul,
Ronnie quipped. I was talking about Violet. Ronnie set another water bottle on the table, and he vowed silently to stock the place with beer, because if he was eating regularly with his could-be mother-in-law, he was going to need it.
This place is well stocked, she said, sitting back down. Penny Knight brought us extra training pants. Her son is potty training too. Luckily, Vi won't care that they're all blue.
Would she rather have pink? He could find a way to get pink training pants. He could totally shop on the internet.
That's the thing. She doesn't care, Ronnie said. As long as she has Mr. Bunny, she's cool. She's a chill kid. I often wonder if all the drama surrounding her somehow made her calm and accepting.
She takes after me, Sandra said, walking back in and sitting down at the table. Everything about the woman spoke of a military-like economy of movement.
I don't panic. Ever. I have a cool head. I like to think before acting. I've found it always helps to be prepared for everything. You never know when you might need to take action.
She said the last with a pointed stare his way. He wondered how long she'd been plotting revenge. And it also is good to figure out if the person you might want to take action against wasn't really just an idiot who got caught in a trap not of his own making. Sandra huffed and turned back to her daughter.
They've got good facilities here. I worked out with that big blonde man. He's an asshole. Mom, try to get along, Ronnie said with a frown.
Oh, if I was 20 years younger, I would definitely get along with him. I would climb that man like a tree and make my nest where it counted, if you know what I mean. He thought he might, and it scared him.
Mom! I'm old, not dead, and that man is beautiful, Sandra said with a chuckle. Actually, all of you are. Including all you idiots who got mind-wiped. I can understand why you did him, baby. He's got those soulful eyes that make girls stupid. I bet he's got abs, too.
Everyone has abs. He wasn't sure how he felt about being objectified, which was weird because he usually didn't mind. But this was Ronnie's mom.
Sandra snorted. Yeah, they are not all the same. You should come down and work out with me tomorrow, Ronnie. I think the Brit is going to be down there.
You know they're all married, right? Everyone. Except me. I'm not married. I'm not even dating anyone. He was not mentioning the fact that most of his female experiences since he'd come out of captivity had been with hookers.
Sandra shrugged. Again, I can look. I wouldn't touch a married man, of course, but I have needs. Can we not talk about your needs? Ronnie practically begged.
Sandra ignored her daughter. It was obvious she was going to try to make the new guy as uncomfortable as possible.
So, what's up with all the crazy stuff out in the garden part of the building? Those benches are weird, and why are they hidden?
Because they're spanking benches and they're hidden because they make scene spaces. Luckily, he wasn't easily made uncomfortable. The room seemed to go still, both women staring at him like he'd grown horns. Finally, he had the upper hand. He knew he should step back, but it was good to take the lead on something. It almost never happened. Yeah, the garden's a sex club every weekend, and sometimes on Thursdays. Don't worry, there's a nursery, and the subs all take turns with the kiddos. He picked up his slice and took a bite. His appetite was totally back. 2 hours later, Ronnie stared out over the lush greenery below and tried not to think about whether or not Tucker spent time down there. It was quiet at this time of night, though it wasn't even 11. Apparently this group kept their kinky stuff to the weekends, and some Thursdays. Of course he spent time down there. Why wouldn't he? He lived here. He was a gorgeous man who likely had a sex drive, and there was a sex club where people had sex, where he'd probably had sex. It had been a long time since she'd had sex. Hey, are you all right? She winced and turned to see the man she'd been thinking about, as though she'd managed to conjure him. He'd stayed for dinner, explaining the BDSM lifestyle to her mother. Yeah, that had been uncomfortable for her. Mom and Tucker seemed to have a great time. He was still in the jeans and t-shirt he'd been wearing earlier, but he carried a beer in his hand. I needed some air, she replied, and held out her hand. And I'm going to need that. He'd said he would give her everything. He passed her the cold beer without a single complaint. Sure. I went down to Rob's for a couple of minutes. Okay, I went to Rob's because I knew he had beer and your mom is a lot. I think she's planning to do something terrible to me, and it might involve not fun torture. Because he was interested in the fun kind of torture. She took a long drink, and then realized that her lips were touching where his lips had touched, and that did something for her. She turned away and went back to staring at the lush green below. It was beautiful, like the man who moved in beside her. And like that man, she didn't understand it. Did I freak you out with the BDSM stuff? Yes. She'd promised honesty. He took a deep breath. When I came out of captivity, I was out of control. I might not have looked that way on the outside, but I was angry and confused and violent in my head. I know BDSM sounds like it's all about sex, but it's not. It's about control and trust and communication, which I wasn't great about when I got out. Of prison. He'd been in prison and punished in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. Why would he turn back to violence in a place that should be loving? I would think, having been tortured, that you wouldn't want to have anything to do with it. Torture is a funny word. I guess it's like any word. It is what you make it. He pushed off the wall. I'll make sure you know when play nights are, and you can stay in, or I can have you moved to one of the apartments at the bottom of the building. You can't see anything from there. She also wouldn't be able to see the beauty below her. She wouldn't be able to see him as often if they weren't living on the same floor. All right. Then what does the word mean to you? He stopped, and she was worried he wouldn't answer her. Finally, he leaned back over, looking down, his hip brushing against hers. Oh, torture can be hideous. Trust me. I've been worked over by some of the finest pain givers in the world, and I was on time dilation drugs, so it lasted for what felt like years. But there are forms of torture that can be sweet, and we use the word the same way we use the word play or submissive. The women and men who submit here typically aren't submissive in their vanilla lives. They use it as a form of relaxation, a way to let that piece of themselves be expressed. Some use submission as permission to enjoy themselves. The torture in that case isn't torture at all, since it's something they choose, something they enjoy. She hadn't considered what role he would want to play. He'd been so in control when she knew him, but it was apparent he'd changed a lot. Are you the submissive? He grinned her way. No. I prefer the dominant side. I know. I'm so sweet you wouldn't expect it, but there it is. You are not the first person to ask me that question. The grin faded as he sobered. I need the control during sex. I need it to feel safe, and I need my partner to trust me so I feel human, I guess. Worthy. Worthy? She wasn't sure how spanking someone could make him feel worthy. Having someone trust me makes me feel good. I was out of control in the beginning. BDSM gave me some of it back. It let me bring out a part of my personality in a controlled, negotiated way where I know the boundaries and the rules. In the beginning, I had a mentor who wouldn't allow me to hurt anyone. Now I would never do it because I'm in control. I wouldn't ever want to lose the trust of the people around me. She shook her head. I guess I don't understand it because I don't have those tendencies. Really? He made a sound, the one that let her know he didn't buy what she was selling. What? She turned to look at him. He shrugged slightly. I'm just saying most women have tendencies when they let themselves. What is that supposed to mean? She hadn't even wanted sex for years. Not since him. First, she'd been far too angry with him to want any man. Then she'd lost her sister, and she'd been pregnant and scared. The only reason she was thinking about sex again was that she was somewhat safe. It didn't have anything to do with him. What do you want from sex? He asked. She took another drink. She knew she should walk straight back into her apartment and avoid this incredibly inappropriate line of discussion. It had been one thing when he was explaining St. Andrew's crosses to her overly curious mother. There had been humor in that. This was different. There was clear sensuality to his words, and his eyes were warm on her. Though they were standing in the hall, they were alone, and the garden below made the whole setting somewhat romantic. Very romantic. She shouldn't talk about sex with him. Pleasure, of course. She hadn't had physical pleasure in a long time. She hadn't even touched herself. She'd gotten so caught up in being a mom that she forgot she was a woman. He straightened up. Of course. And what else? Why does there have to be something else? It's a biological imperative. I'll tell you what I want. Everyone wants an orgasm. It's easy. I can use my hand for that. What I want, what I've been chasing for the whole time I can remember, which isn't long, is connection. I want to feel close to someone. I want to give pleasure as much as I want to receive it. Sometimes more. That's where the worthy part comes in. Oh, how she longed for the secretive Stephen. He'd been mysterious and closed off, and he had nothing on the man in front of her. This man could rip her apart if she let him, and she couldn't bring herself to not respond. All right. I want connection too, but it has to be the right person. I think I find that connection more in the kissing and the holding than in the actual sex. He frowned suddenly. I didn't give you an orgasm, did I? He went from intense and sexy to goofy and somehow still sexy in a heartbeat. It was fascinating to her. It made her smile. I had an orgasm. Several, actually. You were good in bed, but there wasn't anything weird about it. It was straight-up sex. He was right back to serious and sexy. Then I wasn't on my game. I said it was good. And I'm saying it can be better, he insisted. So you say you don't have any of those tendencies, but let me run you through a scenario. What if you had a partner who you trusted fully? You know this man won't hurt you, so for an evening, you offer to do anything he asks of you sexually. Now she saw his game. That sounds pretty good for him. Only because you don't understand what it means to be a dom. At least not the way I prefer to play. This dominant partner would think about the way he's going to play with you for a long time before your date. He would plan how the evening would go. He would watch you for long periods of time, observing what pleases you and what doesn't, what turns you on and what you can live without. He would try to make sure everything was set up properly, so all you have to do when you join him is obey.
I don't like that word. Sometimes she felt like she'd been far too obedient in life. But then again, her sister had defied the world, and she wasn't here anymore. He shook his head. Again, you're hung up on words. Obey is tricky here because the obedience must be given. It has to be consensual or it means nothing. No one can force you to obey. In fact, in our world, if you withdraw consent, it's my duty to stop and ensure your comfort and safety. Even if that means walking away. Especially in that case. So this man you trust will have likely spent days thinking about you. That would be part of the thrill for him. He would enjoy thinking about how he could bring you pleasure. He would know that sometimes a woman needs permission to be sexual. He would create a space where there's no shame, where she can explore the limits of her sexuality, because he knows that shame is the enemy of pleasure. I've explored. I'm not a virgin. She'd had some crazy college nights. You've explored your fantasies. His voice had gone low. Or have you even allowed yourself to fantasize at all? What did you like about me in bed? She was oddly comfortable talking to him, and that made her anxious. This is weird. Not in my world, he said with a wistful sigh. You want to know what happens in the garden below? A whole lot of it is talking. How can you know what you want if you never ask? If you never let yourself acknowledge that it's okay to talk about this? She didn't like the fact that he was making sense, but then she was mostly flustered at how nice it was to be with him. And what did it really hurt? They were only talking. Fine. I'm not some kind of prude. I liked the way you kissed me. How did I kiss you? The question came out with an aching curiosity that hit her right in the heart. He couldn't remember something that had been important to her, a moment that had changed her life. I don't know. I guess I liked the way I didn't have to think when you kissed me. It wasn't awkward. You would put your hand on the nape of my neck and I would feel petite. I liked that. I liked how big your hand was. And how I could follow your lead. Like this. His hand slid over her neck, and her whole body lit up. It was right there. The impulse to let herself relax and follow his lead. Yeah, a lot like that. He stared at her for a moment, the heat palpable between them. And then he withdrew his hand, and she could breathe again. If I were your dom, I would set up a scene where you were completely helpless. I would tie you down, and you would be forced to accept whatever I gave you. I would touch you everywhere, letting you know that at least while we're playing, your body belongs to me. I would run my hands everywhere, and when you least expected it, I would give your nipples a nasty twist. The pain would flare, but it wouldn't last. It would only serve to make your nipples exquisitely sensitive when I decide to lick and suck them. You wouldn't be able to fight me in the beginning, and in the end, you wouldn't even think about fighting me. You would be my plaything, and that's all you would need to be. She was back to not being able to breathe. This intensity had been a large part of Stephen's appeal. He could be so ruthless about his work, and he would often turn that single-mindedness on her, and that was when she felt like she was the only woman in the world. No man had ever looked at her like he had, like Tucker was now. The first time you kissed me, we were at the lab. It was after hours, and I'd stayed behind because I was finishing up some reports for Dr. Walsh. There were a couple of doctors there who thought they could mess around with me. One in particular made a nuisance of himself. He was married, but he thought the younger women were all fair game. That night he'd stayed behind, too, and he was coming on to me. Hard. You walked in, and he pretty much peed himself after you were done with him. Did I hurt him? His question came out measured, so she couldn't tell if he wanted the answer to be yes or no. Not physically, but he didn't touch me again. Anyway, afterward you stayed while I finished up. You said you wanted to walk me out to my car. I thanked you, and we ended up talking. She could remember how grateful she'd been to not be left alone. It was the first time I saw you as something other than the ambitious doctor who handled things for MacDonald. You stayed way longer than you had planned, and I felt bad for keeping you. You told me it was okay because it might be the only good thing you'd done for anyone in months. I don't know what made me do it, but I went up on my tiptoes and kissed you. It wasn't much. It was barely 2 seconds. When I moved back, you told me that wasn't a kiss. You asked me if you could show me what a kiss was. And you did. He'd been careful with her, making sure she was all right. Rather like he'd explained he would be now. He'd been careful right up until he'd been sure she was with him, and then he'd taken over. Then he'd taken her someplace she'd never been before. Show me. She came out of the memory at the sound of his command. Show me. That was what he'd said to her that night. She could come out of the memory because it was hers. That moment was there in her brain, and she could call on it for the rest of her life. It was something so personal. Her memories were the sum of her soul. It struck her forcibly what he'd lost, what she'd lost. That memory had truly been theirs, a shared history that should have connected them for the rest of their lives. Now she was the only one who knew what it had felt like that night. He was right there. He was standing in front of her, asking for that connection again. She went up on her toes. Thank you. I didn't want him near me, but I don't feel the same way about you. She let her lips brush his, the bare meeting of flesh that came from a woman who wasn't sure of what she'd wanted then, of what she wanted now. And then you shook your head. Tucker shook his head and took the beer from her hand. He set it on the ledge and turned back to her. Oh, that wasn't a kiss. Let me show you how I kiss. Will you let me kiss you, Ronnie? I think about kissing you all the time. So close to what he'd actually said. She would take it. Yes. Please kiss me. The air seemed to go out of the room, and her vision focused in on him. It was like the rest of the world fell away. It was exactly as it had been that first night with him. Something had fallen into place when he'd looked at her, and she'd known nothing would be the same. If he kissed her again, they would have that connection they'd lost. His hand went around the nape of her neck, sending a delicious warmth down her spine. He pulled her slightly, drawing her close in an easy show of strength. He brought their bodies together, and her breasts brushed against his chest. His free hand wrapped around her waist, and she took a moment to look into his eyes. They were the clearest blue. Something about his eyes had always dragged her in, even when they were cold. Even when no one else had been able to see the emotion behind them, she hadn't been fooled. I want to believe. But I don't want to believe, she said quietly. Because it would be easier if I was the bastard you've spent years believing I was. I know. Ronnie, I can't imagine I was easy to care for then. I'm not easy now. But for however long we get together, I want to try to be with you. We can take it slow and find a way to be friends again. She sighed at the thought, because he was going to pull away, and that was the last thing she wanted. Now that she was here and alone with him, she knew she couldn't lose the chance to explore this side of the man. We were never friends.
She moved in and kissed him. It wasn't what had happened that night, but that was all right. They were making a new memory, one no one could take away from them. It might all go to hell tomorrow, but she would kiss the father of her child again. She would have this new memory of him. Tucker groaned as her lips met his and his hands tightened. He took over the kiss, and she followed his lead, wrapping her arms around him and letting every reason to not do this fall away. His mouth took hers, devouring her in the best of all possible ways. Comfort. She'd found comfort and safety in his arms. It was precisely why his leaving had been so hard a betrayal. No one had ever made her feel like Stephen had. And she wanted that again. In that moment, she couldn't even lie to herself. His fingers wound in her hair, tugging lightly to guide her. His tongue slipped in, dominating hers, and she realized he'd been right. They'd been in dominant and submissive positions even then. She simply hadn't known what to call them. Would he have taken her further if they'd had longer together? Would he have eased her into a sexual relationship where he took control and she was able to find a place where she was comfortable with herself? Where she didn't question if she was doing something right because he would tell her and they would find a way? Was this why sex had been so good with him? And what would sex be like with this version of the man? God, I remember this, he said against her lips. I remember how good you felt in my arms. I remember that this felt like home. And I hadn't been home in so fucking long. He kissed her again, and she held him tight, emotion welling inside. Veronica? I'm sorry to interrupt, but Violet woke up. She's asking for you. I can tell her you're busy. She practically jumped back at the sound of her mother's voice. She was absolutely certain she was a bright shade of red. Violet was awake. She was in a foreign place and she'd woken up and her mom wasn't there. Of course she was scared. What was she doing? He'd been back in her life for a single day and she was ready to give it up. I'm sorry. I'll be right there. She turned to Tucker. I should go. Do you need help? His hair was mussed because at some point she'd run her fingers through it. It was soft, and she liked that it was slightly long. It framed his gorgeous face. I could rock her. They were moving way too fast, and he was right. His life was complicated. She hadn't come here to fall madly in love with the man she'd thought had ruined her life. She'd come to build a new one with her daughter. She shook her head. No, I should get to bed. This was a mistake? She nodded. I accept that. But Ronnie, it's one you're going to make again and soon. I'll see you in the morning. I want to have breakfast with my daughter. Was that a good idea? He continued. I might not be able to be in her life later. The unselfish thing to do would be to stay away, and I would if she was older, but she's so young. Can't she know even for a few days that her father loved her? She usually gets up around 7. I don't know what I have for breakfast, she admitted. He'd placed much-needed space between them, as though he knew how close she was to simply running away. I'll be here at 7 with breakfast. I'll handle everything. And Ronnie, thank you for letting me know her. I'm down the hall if you need anything. He walked away, and Ronnie turned to her mom. It didn't mean anything. Her mother's eyes rolled. Sure it didn't. That boy, he's good. Damn, even I wouldn't have been cold enough to turn his hot ass down. Mom. She rushed inside and found Violet crying. I'm sorry, baby girl. No, I'm sorry, her mother said as she walked in. The situation might not be what we thought it was. I talked to Taggart.
And despite the fact that he's a massive ass, he's also solid. He's willing to stand up for the kid. I shouldn't have interrupted you, but it's habit. I'll try to go easier on him. But sweetheart, even if he's everything they say he is, even if he didn't leave you willingly, he's still dangerous. She finished the sentence, reading her mother's mind with ease. Violet clutched at her, but her little head had turned, as though she was looking to see where the new guy had gone. Tucker was dangerous for all of them. Chapter 6. 4 days later, Tucker sat back in his chair and put a hand on Buster's head. She tried broccoli for the first time last night, and it did not go well. Neither in the eating process or the digestive process. Robert chuckled. He occupied the desk across from Tucker's. All of the Lost Boys shared a single big office space when they were in London. I think Ari and I will hold off on the kiddos for a while. They're cute, but I want to avoid diapers as long as I can. I'm not going to be able to, Owen complained. I'm terrified of nappies. But Rebecca's got that look in her eye. She knows Jax and River are trying. And I saw her playing with Vi and Ollie the other day. All of a sudden she's asking what do I think would be a good name for a kid. She was not amused when I told her I liked the name 10 years down the line. I'm worried, but then I think if Tucker there can have a kid, I'm probably okay. He's a baby himself. He sent Owen his middle finger. He was settling in nicely to being a father, including watching over her while Damon's boy sized her up. Yeah, he had his eyes on Oliver Knight. Though she could do worse. Ollie would be well-educated, and Damon was both wealthy and polite. When they eventually got to Dallas, though, he would watch those Taggart boys. Hey, he's been a doting dad, Robert pointed out. He spends all his free time with Ronnie and Violet. Have you made any headway with Ronnie? She seems to have opened up a bit. I saw her downstairs having lunch with Rebecca and Ariel. Rebecca and Ronnie had a breakthrough, Owen admitted. It involved wine, and then they yelled at each other for not talking when things were going bad at Kronberg. I thought I should break it up at one point, but Ian said it was how women worked things out. There was a lot of crying, and then the tequila came out, and now they're best friends. It was the emotional equivalent of guys punching it out. He and Ronnie needed to do the same thing, though it wouldn't involve punching. It would involve getting nasty, though. The tension between them was building, and had been since she'd kissed him so sweetly, and then he'd eaten her up like a starving man. He just needed more time. Explain the delay again, a deep voice said, reminding Tucker why he had a 100-pound dog seeking his comfort. The big mutt who had followed Jax and River halfway across the globe rested his head in Tucker's lap. Normally he would have stayed close to Jax, but Jax was currently being interrogated by Ian, who was anxious to get home. Buster had an excellent sense of self-preservation. Ian loomed over the resident computer guru. Why is this taking so long? You've had days to do a simple job. Do I need to bring Adam over? Jax's head tilted up to look at their boss. I thought Adam was working for himself now. I don't know that he can drop everything to come over and fake a couple of IDs for you. That's like asking Michelangelo to paint a portrait of your dog. Fine, Ian said, his jaw clenched. I can bring Hutch over if you can't do it. He had to give it to Jax. His brother was cool under pressure. I thought Hutch was holding down the actual paying work while Adam's company is searching for Robert's mom. I told you I would help with that. Robert stood at his desk. But I also don't want to put her in danger. We don't even know if she exists. She could be dead for all we know. My brother, too. That's not what Green said, Jax pointed out. Green lies. Robert sat back down, his eyes going to the screen. Tucker wished he knew what was going on in Robert's head. He didn't want to talk about the family his former wife had described. Despite the fact that Levi Green had told them Emily Seeger hadn't been lying about Robert's mother and brother, Robert didn't want to talk about the potential of finding them. Jax seemed to understand Robert needed a moment. He looked back to Ian. "Do you want to pull them off important work so they can forge a couple of documents? I'm waiting on the right tools. This is a delicate thing, Tag, especially considering we're dealing with a baby and an elderly woman." "Elderly woman, my arse," Owen said from his desk. "She talked me into sparring with her yesterday. And then she kicked me in the balls. Bloody hell. She said ISIS wouldn't play fair, and they wouldn't care about my future baby-making prospects. I tried to tell her I wasn't planning on going up against ISIS any time soon." Tag pointed Owen's way. "You should always be ready to go up against ISIS. Sandra Croft is the most awesome thing I've found in a long time, and I want to recruit that woman. I think she could make an excellent operative if we could get her to stop calling everyone an asshole. And Jax, I'm going to tell her you called her elderly." Jax proved there was pressure that could faze him. He paled considerably. "Hey, I was only pointing out that we don't usually have to move women like her. We don't normally move whole families. I have to have a cover story, and I have to deal with the baby, and Tucker asked me to slow things down." He groaned. Fucking tattletale. Tag had already turned on him, and Buster whimpered and shifted away. "I knew it was you. Listen here, you little shit. I can't go home without them. They want to go back to Dallas, and I can't send them out without an escort. I have a pregnant wife and 3 kids. Do you understand how pissy the wife gets when she's left alone with 3 kids for 2 weeks because I'm waiting on Jax to do his damn job?" "I'll go with them." It was what he wanted to do. He needed to move around a lot. Why couldn't this move be to Dallas for the time being? "You can leave tonight, and I'll go when everything's ready. I can help out around the office and get them settled in. Or you could go to jail and be extradited to any number of countries." Tag was being overly dramatic. "It's only 4 countries. That's a specific number. 4 whole countries in the world want to throw me in jail. One of them is New Zealand. How bad could that be?" He didn't remember robbing that bank in Auckland, but he was sure it had been a polite crime. "Yeah, well, the other 3 aren't known for hobbits," Tag shot back. "I haven't spent years of my life trying to keep you alive so you could get tossed in a freaking gulag in Siberia. Am I clear?" He'd been clear all week. It was frustrating. He wasn't going to let Ronnie leave without him. He couldn't lose Violet. "That is my child. Tell me you would let Kenzie or Kala go alone. Anything could go wrong." "Which is precisely why I'm escorting them. And Solo is going to monitor things, so I've got a heads up if we need to change plans. We're going on a private jet." Tag seemed to rein himself in. "I get that you're worried, but I think it's safe for her to go. I think it might be safer for her than staying here. And you should know that I've talked to Ezra about moving you guys again." That had them all sitting up. "What?" Jax said. Tag held a hand up. "I'm worried because I think German intelligence is sniffing around MI6. Solo has information that places 2 known German operatives in London at MI6 headquarters, talking to the new boss. And we all know both agencies are interested in you. Kronberg has a new VP. You remember Arthur Dwyer? The one who we're pretty sure lied about seeing Tucker and Veronica at the airport, but he definitely knew they'd gone somewhere." "I remember he watched my wife's arse and breasts the whole time he was having lunch with her," Owen said with a frown. "Yeah, well, he's gone from research to the corporate top floors, and I think that can't be a coincidence." Tag stared at him. "I think it's a matter of time before MI6 puts the pressure on Damon to give you up, and he won't. What do you think that will mean?" It meant trouble.
The door came open, and Ezra strode through. He stopped when he realized everyone was looking at him, and frowning because he hadn't said a damn thing. Ezra turned to Tag. "You told them? I told you not to tell them until I had a plan in place." "Why the hell do we have to move?" Jax asked, standing. Buster sat at his side. "I've moved my wife 3 times in the last year. You know, we're talking about having kids." Ezra pointed a finger his way. "Which is precisely why you shouldn't have gotten married. You knew what would happen when the heat was on us again. River knew exactly what she was getting into. Robert and Owen are free to stay here. You and Tucker will come with me. I think whoever was checking out Solo's place the other night was intelligence. I don't understand why they would come after us at this point." "You're working with MI6 and the CIA," Robert pointed out. "You've been feeding them intel on us the whole time." "In order to protect you." Tag's arms had crossed over his chest. "Damon and I have been working with trusted members of those teams. Damon's old boss recently retired, and it wasn't his choice. We think one of the reasons they forced Nigel out is because they want someone who'll put more pressure on us. I would fight, but the truth of the matter is I am harboring 2 fugitives. I was able to get the charges against my brother and Robert resolved because of the countries those charges came from. I haven't been able to do the same for the secondary team." Because MacDonald had used them far more than her alpha boys. Because she'd been willing to risk them in a way she hadn't with her favorites. "And would that change if Tucker and I offered to fully cooperate with the agency?" Jax asked. "Would the agency be able to get them to back down?" It was funny, because a few days before he wouldn't have even considered it, since it would mean medical tests, and he didn't trust the agency as far as he could throw it. But now, the thought of being separated from Ronnie and Vi made him sick. If there was even a chance they could have any normalcy at all, he would take it. Yes. What if we were willing to do whatever they asked in exchange for full pardons or the promise to fight any extradition attempts? "River and I will be perfectly happy in bliss. We don't need to leave the country again," Jack said, his eagerness apparent. "Tucker's more than welcome to come with us, or he can stay in Dallas. I'm done with leaving home." He would have options if he could get his name cleared, or at least the promise that he wouldn't be arrested and tossed into some international jail. He could have a relationship with his daughter. And he was desperate enough to use that to forge a new bond with Veronica. He wanted her. He needed her. She was the one, and he needed time to make her see that they worked. She'd softened up enormously since that first meeting. She let him stay at her place until it was time for Violet to go to bed. He ate most of his meals with her. She cooked, and he did the dishes, and Sandra told him all the ways he was doing it wrong. Once they'd watched TV afterward, and he'd sat beside her. It had been a British show about ghosts trying to get rid of a couple in their home, but he hadn't really watched it. He'd watched her laugh. He'd watched her lips curl up and her chest move. She hadn't let him kiss her again, but it was coming. Then he would be coming, but only after she came. He couldn't do any of that if she was in Dallas and he was holed up in Liechtenstein or some other European country with cheap hotels and not a ton of security. Yeah, it probably wouldn't be Liechtenstein. "You don't understand what you could be getting into," Ezra said, a grim set to his face. "I don't know what they want. I know what Solo says, but she's not working directly for the agency in this case. I've told you there are factions in the CIA, and they don't change the way a president does. Hayes is up for re-election." "He's probably going to win," Robert pointed out. "But if he doesn't, we have no idea how the other guy would handle our case." Tag continued Ezra's line of thought. "Or if he even would handle it at all. Most presidents take a hands-off approach, hence places like the ranch existing. They don't want to know what the agency is doing, so they don't get any blood on their hands. You could go into this, and it could be fine for a couple of months. Then there's a regime change, and suddenly you're worth more dead than alive.
The ranch had been a secret facility deep in the woods of Colorado. According to the records they'd found, he was fairly certain he'd been there, working with Hope MacDonald. Would he end up in a place like that? Would he deserve whatever he got there? He knew Jax didn't. You can't do it. Robert moved to stand next to Owen. You have to give us time. We can find out what happened to that intel. If we have the intel, that list of everyone who knowingly worked with MacDonald, then we've got the advantage. We can handle this. I think you had something to do with it, Tucker. We all do, Owen agreed. We think you figured out exactly what was happening, and you decided to go to the authorities. Maybe that's what you were doing the day you disappeared. We've got some leads to follow, and Rebecca and I will go with you. Wherever you go, we'll be there. She won't even question it. Because Rebecca had become a part of the team. Rebecca would put her career on hold, place herself in danger, do anything it took to stay with them. Did he want that life for Ronnie and Vi? No, but he also didn't want them out in the world on their own. He didn't want his daughter to wonder what had happened to her father for the rest of her life. She should know that he fought for the right to stay with her and her mother. How long do we have before you're going to move us? Ezra seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. I think we should do it next week. I'm putting Rob on logistics, but I'm also going to try to convince he and Owen to stay here. We'll move faster as a foursome than in a big group. Not going to happen, Rob said. Even if I wanted to, Rebecca won't let Tucker go without a physician, Owen explained. She doesn't like the idea of him working so soon. She definitely won't like him traveling. I'll minimize it as much as possible, Ezra promised. I'm worried that the agency seems to be here in London. That's 3 intelligence groups. I don't like it. Solo would know if something is about to go down, wouldn't she? Jax asked. She would warn us. Only if it suited her purposes. Ezra moved toward the desk he used. I worry she's staying here to keep an eye on us in case we do move. And I worry that your emotional state won't let you see an ally when she's standing right in front of your face, Tag shot back. She's the one who told us she thinks MI6 is working with German intelligence and might be ready to make a play. Which is exactly what she would say if she wanted to distract us so she could make her own play. Ezra kept on walking. She's had access for a long time. If she was going to make a move, she would have made it, Tag said with a long-suffering sigh. But your butt is so hurt it's affecting your vision. Ezra set his laptop on the desk. Fire me, then. I didn't hire you in the first place. Tag's eyes rolled before turning back to Tucker. Let Jax know it's okay for him to do his job. I would threaten the hell out of him, but he's not going to move until you let him. I trained you too well. The puppies have a pack, and they're tight. Tag had been the one to get them out of that hell they'd been in. He'd only been there to save his brother Theo, and Tucker knew well that most men would have done the job and turned the rest of their sorry asses over to whoever wanted them. Not Ian Taggart. At great personal expense, he'd given them a place to stay. He'd put himself in the crosshairs when he hadn't had to. He trusted Tag. He owed Tag. Jax, it's cool. It turned his stomach, but if Tag said this was what needed to happen, he would be patient. It's already done, Jax admitted. I'm actually brilliant at what I do. Tag ignored Jax's lack of humility. Thank you, Tucker. I promise I'll take care of them. We'll leave for Dallas the day after tomorrow. I've got some friends at Customs and Immigration who I'll let know we're coming. which meant they would probably not look so closely at the documentation Ronnie, Vi, and Sandra would be flying under. They would be safe with McKay Taggart.
I'll also make sure she's got a safe place to stay. Adams offered up his guest house, Tagg explained. We'll give them 24/7 security, and that also means zealously guarding your territory of all invaders, foreign and domestic. And other men who sniff around your chick.
Tagg was a giver. She'll need that for a while. But if I'm gone for months, maybe years, you have to help her move on. He didn't want her to move on, but he had to face the fact that he might never be able to be the kind of husband and father he wanted to be. He might spend the rest of his life on the run. It might end up being a short life. Tagg put a hand on his shoulder.
I know I haven't sorted this out yet. I know I've shot down every plan you've come up with, but I promise, it's not going to be years.
He'd had a lot of ideas he'd thought could help, including having them all spit into one of those DNA test things and putting them online to see who they matched with. Tagg had pointed out that DNA was one of those things the cops probably had from their various crimes, and that they wouldn't hesitate to use it against them, even if they'd only been wanting to find out how much Norwegian blood they had.
Solo is right about one thing, Tagg continued. This whole mess is coming to a head, and we've got to hunker down and get through it. I want you to try hypnosis again. I know it didn't work with Ari, but Kai has had some success with it. When you're settled, I'll send him out to you.
Because the keys to the kingdom might be locked in his fucked-up brain. That was what killed him. He was very likely the one who could give them the bargaining chip they needed. Someone had stolen those files, and it was probably him. He'd gone into the Kronberg building, and he'd known exactly where the files should have been. He'd known where the safe was hidden. When he'd worked there, he'd been a researcher. How else would he know where the secrets were held if he hadn't been the one to take them? I'll do whatever you think is best. But I want to talk to Levi Green, too. He needed to find out what Levi knew. Yes, he could be lying, but at least that would tell them something. Ezra stood back up. I doubt that's going to happen. Unless Solo pulls some serious strings, there's no way they'll let any of us close to a high-value prisoner.
I don't know how long he'll be of high value if he doesn't talk. Solo says he's been holding out, Tagg explained. He still has some influence with the agency. My question is, why is he holding out? If he gave them the information they wanted, they would cut a deal with him.
What if I'm the only one who knows? What if I was working for him, and I was going to meet him that day? He'd thought about it a lot, since he'd learned Green was supposedly in Paris the same day. What if he'd fallen in love with Veronica and realized he needed an out? What if he'd been willing to cut a deal to hand over valuable information to the agency in exchange for not getting his ass prosecuted for international crimes? It's why I should talk to him.
I'll run it past Solo, Tagg offered. I'm only going to agree if we can work out a deal where we share the information with the agency, but they don't get physical custody of you.
And I'm going to be there, Ezra said. I'm not letting him anywhere near a bunch of agency assholes without backup. If he goes in, we both go with him.
Agreed.
Tagg nodded toward the door.
Can I talk to you in private?
He was going to get dressed down for asking Jax to hold up Ronnie's documents. He could handle it. It was nice of Tagg to not do it in front of everyone. And it didn't matter, because she would be gone soon. She would be on a completely different continent, and so would his daughter. He followed Tagg out, but he couldn't really feel his feet. Tagg walked to the end of the hall before turning to him. He glanced back down toward the office.
I don't think those fuckers can hear us here. We need to talk.
I'm sorry about holding you up. Tagg waved that off.
I do get it, man. No, we need to discuss something else. I'm giving you 2 nights to get her in bed and brand her.
That wasn't what he'd been expecting. What?
I'm not talking about an actual brand, though Corey totally let Kai do that to her. It was a weird night. I offered to do Charlie, and she promised if I touched her with hot metal in an attempt to put a property of sign on her body, she would torch my dick. I believe her, so I dropped it. No, I'm talking about an emotional and sexual brand. I've watched her a lot over the last couple of days, and she wants you. It's obvious she's not over you. So give her something to hold on to, and by something, I mean your dick. You have to be good at it, man. I know you've practiced because I paid for your hookers. He glanced around.
Hey, let's not say the H word while Ronnie's in a building. And I didn't sleep with most of them. I was looking for connection.
Then they overcharged, Tag complained. They should have a cuddle rate. You do realize you always picked the one who looked like her, right? Every single one of those women looked something like Veronica Croft. You didn't mean to leave her. Or am I wrong, and you're spending every night at her place so you can be with your daughter? That's fine too. But if that's true, you shouldn't implement the plan.
I'm crazy about Ronnie. I want to marry her. He knew it deep inside. What plan? I didn't realize there was a plan except you're going to take her back to the States.
The plan where you fuck her so well she's still waiting for you when you get to come back to the States. That plan. You need to make your move.
There was a scenario Tag wasn't thinking about. And if I don't get to come back? If I never clear my name? Then all I'll have done is hurt her again. It was the last thing he wanted to do. It was precisely why he hadn't even thought about pushing her. He wanted her, wanted every minute he could get with her, but it might only bring her heartache in the end. Hadn't he brought her enough of that? Tag groaned.
I knew you'd do the martyr thing. You have that look in your eyes, the one that says, I'm not going down fighting. It's stupid. I'm telling you a life secret. Don't go down at all. You don't go into a mission saying, I hope this works out, but maybe I shouldn't give it my all because it could go wrong and someone might get hurt. Fuck no. You go in believing fully that you will win the day. You will win the girl. In this case, it's more like winning back your baby mama.
He winced. I don't think we should call her that. Tag shrugged.
Everybody will call her that. I'm planning on introducing her to everyone in Dallas as Tucker's baby mama. If she doesn't like it, she can marry you, and then I'll introduce you as Veronica's husband. See, this is complex psychological manipulation. I'll handle that part. You do the easy part. Fuck her so well she can't imagine fucking anyone else. Do you need a playlist? It's not actually a list. It's more like a single song set to play over and over again, but it gives you the perfect thrusting rhythm.
He was not listening to Guns N' Roses while he made love to Ronnie. He would close his eyes and see Big Tag's head or something. No. Yuck. And he wasn't making love to Ronnie. I'm not trying to be a martyr. I'm trying to hurt her as little as possible. I obviously fucked up the first time. It's not fair to do it to her again. If I can get us what we need and get back to her in a reasonable amount of time, maybe we can try. Tag frowned his way.
No. What's not fair is to treat her like she's some prize to only be won if you survive. She's not. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that our women, our wives, the ones we would do anything for, need to be more than a freaking prize. If you love her, you tell her, and you give her the chance to choose what she wants to do. You trust her enough to know her own mind and to decide if she can be a partner to you. You don't walk away from your partner because she might get her feelings hurt if you die.
He was deliberately misunderstanding. I'm not walking away because my job is dangerous. I literally have people who would like to cut me open and see how my brain works. She's in danger around me.
I think she's in danger whether you're around or not.
Tucker, think about it. According to her, she's been safe for almost 3 years. She comes out of hiding, and suddenly someone knows where Solo's secret house is. They've been watching her. They know she was there the day you went missing. Hell, it could be about whatever her sister found out. Someone thinks she knows something. His gut clenched. Then we have to protect her. Tag's eyes rolled.
That's what I've been trying to say.
No, you've been telling me to take her to bed. Which was all he wanted to do. He wanted to wrap her up and never let her get out of bed. Except when Violet was hungry, or needed a change, or got fussy. He understood that his courtship was going to involve a lot of baby bodily fluids.
Exactly.
Tag nodded like he was happy he'd finally understood. Tucker hesitated. I don't want to ask. I really don't. But what do you mean?
I mean she'll trust you more if you show her how much you care about her.
Tag seemed to get serious.
I mean if she cares about you.
She'll want that memory.
There's this thing from an old poem, and it makes me gag even to say it.
He knew exactly what Tag was talking about, and he was absolutely going to force him to say it. What's the saying? I'm sure I never heard it. Tag groaned.
Fine. It's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved, or something like that. It means life is short. Drink the beer, fuck the girl, love her, let yourself love her. Give her the chance to love you. You don't know if you'll get another one. And man, if you tell anyone we had this talk, I'll kill you.
But only after he'd made his play for Ronnie. Maybe Tag was right, and he was trying to martyr himself. It was better for her to know how he felt. It was better for Ronnie to know he'd loved her even if it all fell apart. It was better for Violet to know her dad had fought to keep them all together, even if they couldn't physically be together. He could have 2 nights with her, if he could convince her to give him a chance. Tonight was a play night. The garden would be lit up, and she was curious. He could use that. And he had practiced. Not that he would ever tell her those stories. Ever. All right. I'll try. Tag seemed to breathe a sigh of relief.
Thank God. Because the last thing I needed was you being all emotional. Excellent. If you can get her to come to play night, that would be a place to start. I won't be there. I'm being a perfectly good boy, and I'll be on the computer having a family meal I can't eat and yelling at my kids so they don't forget me. They put the laptop in my place and I sit there. Sometimes Bud licks the screen and hits the camera, and I get to watch them all through a haze of dog saliva.
Tag sighed and walked toward the elevators.
I need to get home.
He watched as Tag walked away. It was a mere moment before Robert was in the hallway.
It's better to have loved and lost,
Robert said with a shake of his head.
I can't believe he said that.
Jax has that super hearing thing on, doesn't he? He hadn't mentioned to Tag that Jax might have modified his computer to help them hear and see what was going on in the hallway.
Oh, when he realized Tag was giving you his version of the dad talk, he recorded that sucker for humanity.
I think he's already making a song out of it, Robert revealed. But I'm glad you're going after Ronnie. I think you should. Tag is right. You don't know when you'll get another chance. And I'll talk to Adam. I should try to find them. His family. His mother and his brother, who might or might not exist. Who might or might not be alive. He held out a hand.
I'll do anything I can to help you find your family." Robert took it. "And I'll do anything I can to help you keep yours together." It was a promise between brothers. That was all he could ask. It felt good to sit in the courtyard with friends having lunch. How long had it been since she'd gotten to do something normal? Granted, she'd only known Ariel for a few days, but Robert's wife was lovely and already felt like a woman she could get close to. Rebecca and she had patched things the other night in what Ariel called the Great Tequila Peace Treaty. They'd both made mistakes, and they'd both been afraid. It was time to find some bravery.
"How are things going with you and Tucker?"
Ariel asked in her lovely British accent. Her hair was in its natural curl, forming a halo around her face.
"Has he put the moves on you yet?"
Yeah, maybe bravery would have to wait.
"He's getting to know Violet."
"I won't ever have a Violet if your mother keeps kicking my husband in the balls," Rebecca said, her hand on the glass of rosé she was enjoying. "I had to hold a bag of frozen peas to his crotch, and you would not believe how much he whined. Balls are delicate things." She winced. It was not the first time Rebecca had mentioned her mom in Owen's sparring session.
"I talked to her. She's not allowed to spar with Owen anymore. I'm so sorry. She can be intense."
"She can be insane," Rebecca said with a shake of her head. "And you're avoiding the question. Has Tucker not been trying to hump your leg? I find that difficult to believe. I've never met a man who needed physical affection more than Tucker." Was that why he constantly wanted to hold Violet? Why he would get down on the floor and play dolls with her? He was a tall, muscular man, and he didn't seem to mind at all when a tiny girl tried to put a plastic tiara on him. He was heartbreakingly good with her daughter. Their daughter.
"You know why that is."
And he wasn't the only one, Ariel chided.
"Owen humped more than your leg the first chance he got. Like 5 minutes after he met you."
"It was hours," Rebecca corrected. "But yes, it was that first day. Being stuck in an elevator can be frustrating. We both needed some affection, but I understand what you're saying. Continue." Ariel grinned at her friend and did as she'd asked. "Like I was saying, all the lads craved affection. Jax was all over River the night he met her." Her grin faded. Robert was the stubborn one, but then he'd been out longer than the rest of them. I suspect Robert was treated better. Not that any of them weren't tortured, but MacDonald seemed more invested in Robert's group. She treated the group Tucker was in like animals she experimented on before giving her drugs to humans. Ronnie looked down at the lovely salad in front of her and knew it would taste like ashes in her mouth. Every time she thought about what had happened to Stephen, the events that had turned him into Tucker, she wanted to be sick.
"I'm sorry,"
Ariel said.
"I know it's hard to hear, but you should understand what he went through if you're going to have a relationship with him, even if it's only to co-parent. I hope you intend to co-parent with him. I think it would be hard for him if you denied him visits with Violet. Tucker bonds quickly, and he's intensely loyal. Once he got himself kidnapped by Ukrainian mobsters and let them torture him because his friend's girlfriend had been captured, and he wouldn't let her go alone. He had a tracking device in his arm," Rebecca explained. "By letting himself be taken, he led Big Tag and the group right to where Stephanie was being held. He saved them." He'd willingly walked into more torture. Well, he'd mentioned the tracking device was a plus. But he couldn't have known they wouldn't simply shoot him and leave his body behind, Ariel pointed out. He was willing to take that risk. I say it was because he was loyal to Brody, but I think he would have done it for anyone. He's that kind of a man. He was willing to take that stupid drug to save me." Rebecca sniffled and took a deep breath. "I hate Levi Green." She'd heard a lot of people hated Levi Green. "Tell me about it,"
Solo stood in the doorway, a plate in her hand and a bottle of water shoved under her arm. "He sucks." She stood there, half in shadows, and looked like she wanted to join them but was uncertain of her welcome. Ariel gave her a half smile and looked Rebecca's way. Rebecca was suddenly intensely interested in that wine.
"I was just grabbing a sandwich," Solo said with a nod. "You guys have a nice afternoon."
She'd noticed Solo didn't seem to do much more than work, talk on the phone about work, and argue with Ezra Fane, who she called Beck. She seemed lonely. It was sad, since the CIA agent was bright and fun to be around. It was obvious she didn't feel welcome.
"We're having lunch, too."
She'd been that girl waiting in the shadows, hoping she wouldn't have to eat lunch alone.
"You want to join us? Penny was supposed to, but Ollie's fussy, and she's worried he's got an ear infection."
Solo was in that seat faster than Ronnie could pick up the wine to offer her a glass. A bright smile lit the operative's face.
"Thanks. I've spent the last few days eating at my desk. They put me next to the security guard's bathroom. There's something wrong with one of them. I'm sure of it. Either that or Beck's setting off stink bombs. I wouldn't put it past him. It smells nice out here."
Rebecca sighed.
"I'll make sure it wasn't Owen. He's still a touch upset he didn't get to murder Levi." "Sorry," Solo offered. "I know it doesn't help." "No one died," Ariel pointed out. "And we wouldn't have even gotten into the room to save Rebecca and Rob and Tucker if it hadn't been for you. You know I understand why you did what you did. So do Damon and Big Tag. We know the position you were in. You could have waited until Levi was done and then taken him. You didn't have to risk your mission." "Of course I did." Solo sat back. "I'm human, and not whatever the hell Levi is. And I'm sorry about what happened to Tucker. I didn't know what Levi was going to do. I wouldn't have risked him if I had. But I was worried Levi would damage the data." "Can we go back to talking about whether or not Ronnie's going to throw down with the sweetest of the puppies?" "I invited you over here so I could avoid that question." It was funny how she'd lost the will to prevaricate. Since she'd made it to the garden, she hadn't been able to moderate herself the way she normally would. She didn't even want to. Years of hiding had taught her the value of being honest. Solo grinned. "You shouldn't avoid it. I meant what I said. Tucker might seem like the runt of the litter, but he's all kinds of awesome." "He is not the runt." "He wasn't that much smaller than the men he called his brothers. Just because he's not 300 pounds of muscle doesn't make him a runt. He's very strong and tall, and he makes me feel delicate." Rebecca sat back. "Ah, there it is. There's that look of longing every single one of us had before we snagged our man. The good news is I think Tucker really wants to be snagged. You shouldn't have too much trouble. Show him your boobs. It's what I do to Owen. Well, when he can function properly because no one kicked him in the balls." Her mother was a menace. "Obviously we have a connection, but it's complicated. Because he's a wanted criminal with no memory of his past, and you got burned by another version of him and worry if he gets his memory back, he'll be evil again?" Solo asked. "Yes, that's terribly complicated." Ariel put her fork down. "Is that what you're worried about? That Tucker will become Reezer again?" It was always there in the back of her mind, but she questioned if that was even a problem. "I know he had a bad reputation, but I saw a side to Stephen I don't think anyone else knew. I think I might have made a mistake in not questioning Dr. MacDonald. Why would he have slept with me and left me? I get why, but he showed no indication that was what he was planning. Those last few days, he seemed more tense than usual. He was upset by something." "Well, he'd made sure I left," Rebecca said. "Though now I see that bit of terror actually saved me." Dr. McDonald planned to transfer me to the Argentina facility. I assume that's when she would have offered to bring me into her unethical experiments, or done something to me so I couldn't have talked. At the time, I thought it was because Stephen didn't want me taking his place. But you were never in competition for the same job. It was what she hadn't understood about those rumors, the ones that pitted Stephen and Rebecca against each other. Dr. McDonald would never have put you over Stephen anywhere but research. She needed Stephen to keep everyone in line, and you wouldn't have even been tempted to play that role. I wouldn't have. The job in Argentina was strictly research, the way Dr. McDonald explained it. Rebecca seemed to think for a moment. She told me I would have my own lab, and I would have all the funding I wanted. Not once did she imply I would be over Stephen. She was giving me the key to the kingdom when it came to my own research, but I wasn't taking over from Stephen. And now that I think about it, he was there at that meeting. I guess he could have not believed Dr. McDonald. Or he knew what would happen to you if you got on that plane to Argentina. It was becoming more and more clear in Ronnie's mind. At least she thought it was. Memory was a funny thing. It could be influenced by any number of forces, and certainly emotional states. But it felt right to say the words. Did he try to convince you not to go? We had a conversation about how the conditions would be, and what I wanted for my career, Rebecca said. But I didn't like him. I didn't let him talk to me often. I would pretty much come up with any excuse to not talk to him. I can't remember what happened that afternoon. I was planning on telling McDonald I wasn't going to go. I've read all the reports on that day, Solo said. I can tell you what I think happened. Rebecca nodded. I'd like to hear. Owen has his own thoughts, but I worry they're influenced by his love for Tucker. When I look at those reports, taking your part of the story and what Ronnie's told the group, I come to the conclusion that you likely had a conversation with McDonald where you turned her down. According to your phone records, you called your father that day, and your computer records show you looked into flights home. I know all of this, Rebecca said. My dad was sick. I think I was going to see him. Then why did you buy a one-way ticket? Solo sat back. I have better connections than Big Tag no matter what he thinks. This particular one isn't connected to the agency. My family connections are wide and far-reaching. I pulled your credit card records from that day. You bought a one-way ticket, not an open-ended one. You were leaving. Something happened that day that led you to buy that ticket. Rebecca shook her head. I don't remember buying a ticket until 2 days later, after I recovered. Damn it. That drug they gave me screwed with my short-term memory, and I didn't look into what I'd been doing earlier in the day. Stephen wanted me gone. Why would he drug me? What if he didn't? Ariel mused. What if McDonald was the one who drugged you? But Stephen took over so he could control it. He did want you gone. But what if it wasn't for the reasons everyone assumed? He told me we wouldn't go back, Ronnie said. So much falling into place. That day in Paris, he made it sound like we might not even bother going back to Munich, but he'd bought a return ticket. Because he'd already seen what McDonald did to someone who tried to leave, Rebecca concluded. What he did to me was horrible. But the truth is, that whole time is vague. And given how McDonald could manipulate memory, I have to question everything that happened. I've lived with Tucker for months, and I don't see the same man. It's like he's wearing Reezer's face. He's sweet and funny, and my husband trusts him completely. He was sweet and funny with me. She remembered those moments so clearly. Not when anyone else was around. But honestly, it always felt like he was playing a role, and I got to see the real man. I've worked with a lot of terrible people, Solo said, her eyes intent on Ronnie. It's the nature of my job. I have to trust my instincts or I can get into trouble. I would trust Tucker. Almost immediately. I would actually worry about him, because I don't know that he would be worried about his own safety. He would put others ahead of himself. Ariel could explain this better, but there's a nature component to personality. You know, nature versus nurture. What she means is simply because you take away a person's memories doesn't mean he or she suddenly becomes something they're not, Ariel explained. I know we joke about how they were a bit like toddlers, but they had obvious personalities, and they each reacted to what they went through in different ways that tell me a lot about who they are at their cores. I think Tucker either got caught in something he wasn't prepared for and lost his way, or he was undercover. But the agency would have had records, Ronnie pointed out. Who else could he have gone undercover with? Solo actually choked a little at those words. He could absolutely have been working for someone in the agency. We're not some happy family who gets together for reunions and catches up. We've got secrets on top of secrets, and we're not always working toward the same goal. I haven't been able to get Levi to tell me whether or not he was working with Tucker. He says he won't say a thing unless I put them in the same room together, and he wants immunity. From everything. But if Tucker was working for Levi Green, wouldn't that mean he should get immunity too? She hated the idea of him being hauled away in handcuffs. She hated the idea of not seeing him. Of him not sitting across the breakfast table, trying to get Violet to put the banana in her mouth instead of smashing it all over her face. She hated the thought there wasn't a chance for them to be a family of any kind. The problem is we're working with countries that aren't necessarily friendly to the States, Solo explained. Some of them are. And if we got the State Department involved, yes, we might be able to clear things up for him. But right now, in the eyes of the agency, Tucker and Jax are ways to manipulate Big Tag and Damon. She felt her brow rise at that. Solo held up her hands. I'm being honest. I'm not saying I would do it. But you should know that I've talked to Ezra. Well, more like at him, since he won't actually talk to me. I told him I think it's time to move Jax and Tucker. Rebecca sat up. What? Where will we go? Ronnie had thought they would be here until they were ready to be moved to the States. You will head to Dallas with Big Tag as soon as Jax can get your paperwork done, Solo explained. Why are you only talking about moving Jax and Tucker? Rebecca asked. We're a team. I'm not staying here while they're hiding somewhere. Owen won't let that happen. We're safer together. I don't think so. Solo sat back, as though she expected to be asked to leave. I admire your loyalty, but Beck can move faster with Jax, River, and Tucker. I would suggest that they leave the dog, but then I would be a terrible, horrible human being who loves neither dogs nor families. River's words, not mine. I'm not going with Tucker? All she'd wanted when she'd gotten here was to go back to the States. Now the idea of leaving him behind was difficult to process. No. Solo drained her wine glass. Things are reaching a breaking point. I can't tell you everything, but I'm worried that we're all in a dangerous place. After Levi's speech at Kronberg about how Tucker knows more than anyone can imagine, there's been a push to bring him in. As far as anyone knows, he's still in a coma, but I suspect I set something off when I moved you here. You think someone doesn't like Veronica and Tucker being in the same place? Ariel asked. Why would they care? I don't know anything. She should be excited at the prospect of getting on with her life. This was exactly what she'd wanted. She'd come so she could find closure with the man who'd hurt her so badly. Now all she wanted was a little more time with him. A little? She wasn't fooling herself this time. She wanted a lot more time with him. She might want a lifetime with him.
It was way too soon to think that way, but she did know that she wanted the connection with him. Even if he wasn't the one for her, he was Violet's dad, and he always would be. How could this be ending? It had barely begun. He'd only kissed her once. "Ronnie, are you okay?" Ariel was looking at her with concerned eyes. She managed to nod. "Tucker needs a doctor with him," Rebecca was arguing. "Honestly, so does River, because she might be pregnant." Solo groaned and said something about how much easier it was to deal with spies than women whose biological clocks were ticking out of control. They continued to argue, but all she could think about was where she would be in the world at this time next week. And where he would be. Was she willing to leave things the way they were? If Ariel was correct, and he'd been trying to do the right thing, shouldn't she give him another chance? She'd spent the last few years hesitant to trust anyone because she'd been so wrong about him. What if she'd been right? What if it had been her fear and insecurity that had allowed her to believe every word MacDonald said? A memory of the way he'd held her washed over her soul. The women around her continued to fight about who was going where, but Ronnie sat back. She'd lost her appetite. Chapter 7. Ronnie stared out over the first floor of the garden from her place 4 stories above. The lights and music floated up, an invitation to her. All she had to do was get in the elevator and she could be down there, joining the party. Was Tucker down there? This was his place. His club, as he'd called it. How many times had he passed an evening in the club? How many women had he been with? Would it be so bad to be one of them? She'd spent the whole afternoon trying to figure out what she wanted. Tucker was leaving. She was leaving. They wouldn't be together in a couple of days. Would it be easier to not have a night with him? Or would she always regret it? She stared down, unable to make a decision. Was it rude to watch? No one had told her she had to stay in her room on what they'd called a play night. "You thinking about going down there?" She gasped and turned, her mother's voice startling her. "No." Her mom was dressed for bed, wearing pajama pants and a tank top, and looking more relaxed than she normally did. She'd actually settled into a nice routine here and seemed happier than she'd been in a long time. She liked being around the men and women of McKay Taggart. She'd taken to working out with Big Tag and what she called the fucked up ones. It was her surprisingly affectionate name for Tucker and his team. "Why not? I've thought about going down there, if only to see all those gorgeous men with their dicks hanging out. Do you think they hang out?" Maybe it had been better when her mom had only been concerned about their survival. "I don't have a place down there. There's a whole lifestyle, and it's not mine." "I think that's the whole point of their lifestyle. It doesn't have to be yours, but it's open to you. I find these people surprisingly tolerable, and I think part of it is that they've discovered a brilliant balance between hippy-dippy live and let live and knowing exactly when it's time to kick some ass. You don't usually find that. Even your Tucker." When had her mom stopped referring to him as Stephen? It had been days. Maybe after that first night when he'd so obviously been madly in love with their daughter. Tucker had not only taken all the shit her mom had piled on him, he'd made her laugh, speaking to her mom's surreal and often dark sense of humor. "He's not mine." "He's trying to be." Her mother leaned on the railing and looked down with a frown. "Damn Knight. He did a good job with the placement of those trees. I can't see much. Oh, hey, the hot Russian isn't wearing a shirt. I can objectify him. He used to be a bad guy." She was going to start a whole TV show. Moms say the darndest things. "He was never a bad guy.
He's Russian. He was a bad guy, her mom insisted, proving she wasn't the most tolerant of people. Apparently, though, all one needed to be a good guy was to work for an American ally and look hot without his shirt on. Is it wrong that I understand him better than the Aussie? He walks in and says stuff, and all I hear is shrimp on the bobby. Ronnie groaned. You're the reason everyone hates Americans. Her mom simply grinned. Yeah, it's because I'm so cool. She sobered. Are you going to leave him? I don't have much of a choice. She knew something her mother didn't know. Even if I asked to stay, he wouldn't be here. They're moving him in a few days. I don't even know where. I don't think he'll know where until they actually get in a car or a plane. How hard was that life on a man who so wanted normalcy? He obviously craved family life. He wasn't a loner. He liked to be surrounded by people who cared about him, and he gave that care back to them. He was a good man. He was an insanely sexy man. Her mother seemed to think about that for a moment. Maybe you should go with him. It was startling, enough that she felt her eyes go wide. He's on the run. If I go with him, I could be arrested for harboring a fugitive. Well, I didn't say it would be easy, she replied. I have to think about Violet. I know you do, her mom said with a sigh. You're a good mom. But you can't forget to be a woman, too. I know I did. After your dad walked out, I focused on two things, my career and you girls. I don't regret a minute of time I spent with you and Katie. God, you have to know I would do anything to have another minute with her. But I wished I hadn't been alone when she died. Guilt swamped her. I'm sorry. Her mom shook her head. Baby, you were mourning too, but in a different way. And we were scared, because you realized you could lose Vi, and I couldn't even consider losing you. No, I'm not saying you weren't there for me. I'm saying that it's a different kind of support you get from a lover. She couldn't help it. She cringed. Her mom rolled her eyes. Get over it, baby girl. I had a lot of sex in my time. Good sex. Not any lately, and everyone here is married or otherwise taken, but trust me, I've thought about walking down there and seeing what it's all about. I could get into a man who needed some discipline. She was ready to put her fingers in her ears and start singing loudly, so she didn't have to listen to her mom talk about sex. I think I hear Vi crying. I should go check on her. Her mother sighed. She's fine. Come on, Ronnie. Tell me you haven't thought about it. All joking aside, you're going to miss him. She missed him when he wasn't in the room with her. She missed him when he was at work a few floors away. It hadn't been hard to fall into a routine with him, one where she depended on him. He was as reliable as any clock. He showed up on her doorstep at 7 every morning. He almost always had some Danish or pastry he would offer her, and then they would sit and have coffee, and he would watch Vi smash food against her face. He would laugh and clean her up and kiss the top of her head before he left for work. At noon, he often met them for lunch, and then at 5:30 he came for dinner and didn't leave until long after Violet was in bed. Why hadn't she moved closer to him on the couch as they sat watching television shows? She pretended to watch, but the whole time all she could think about was how close he was, how little time they had left. How if she'd had some faith in him, he might not have lost his memories. Have you thought about the fact that while I was cursing his name, he was being tortured? Her mother's eyes softened. Baby, you couldn't have saved him. From what I've read and heard about MacDonald, it's highly likely that she'd already given him the drug by the time she came to see you. Even if by some miracle you had figured it out, you couldn't have saved him. I didn't even look for him. All I cared about was not being embarrassed if he came back to Munich. "Do you know why I like that kid?" her mom asked. "If you say something about his ass—" A brilliant grin crossed her mother's face. "It's not bad, but I like him for other reasons. Reasons I never expected. And one of them is the fact that I don't think it would ever occur to him to be angry with you. I doubt he's thought for a single second that you should have tried to save him. Not because he wouldn't want to be saved, but because I genuinely believe that man would put you and Violet above his own needs. I realized it when he was close to vomiting and managed to make it through a diaper change because you were napping and he wasn't going to wake you up." "I have a surprisingly sensitive nose," a deep voice said. She turned and Tucker rounded the corner. He was dressed as he had been earlier, in a dark t-shirt and buttery soft jeans. "That is not going to serve you well with Vi. She's a stinky kid," her mother said, before leaning toward Ronnie and lowering her voice. "I know you think you might spare yourself some pain if you don't get close to him again, but I think you'll regret it. I think he's special, and you know I don't say that often. When you find something good in life, you grab it with both hands, and you try your damnedest not to let go." Her mom hugged her briefly. "I'm going to bed. I'm spotting for Taggart in the morning. I don't want to listen to that man whine about me being late. Night, young folk." "She's right, you know." Tucker moved in beside her, his elbows on the railing. "I don't blame you for anything. I should have told you then. I didn't mean to, but I put you in danger. So I'm going to tell you now that they're going to move me in a few days. I don't know where, but if you want, I'll try to communicate with you. I'll make sure it's on a safe channel. I don't want to put you or Violet in danger, but I also can't stand the thought of not talking to you." She couldn't stand it either. "Of course. You should be in her life as much as you can." An awkward silence fell between them, and she went back to staring at the space below. Had he come out because he was planning on going down to the party? Was someone waiting for him? A sub? That was what they called themselves. Subs. Rebecca and Ariel had answered some of her questions earlier in the afternoon, explaining without any self-consciousness how their relationships worked. She'd noticed Solo had gotten quiet during that discussion, and she hadn't thought it was because the woman was uncomfortable. She'd seemed deeply interested in the conversation. "You can go down if you want to," she said quietly. "I wasn't going down to the garden. I was going to knock on your door. We didn't talk much tonight, and we need to. I don't want to merely be in Violet's life. It's not only Vi I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss you like hell. I've missed you all along. I just couldn't remember who I missed." They fell silent again. She wasn't sure what to say to those words. She'd missed him, but that emotion had been wrapped up in anger, and she wasn't sure how to let it all go. The simple fact that she'd had no real right to be angry with him didn't make it all fall away. She was in a corner, and she wasn't at all sure how to come out. "Veronica, do you want me to leave?" That wasn't the question. Life would be simpler if he'd stayed Stephen Reeser, if he'd stayed dead. She could have gone through the rest of her life hiding her heart away because once it had been broken. She could have concentrated on her daughter. She wouldn't have to confront all the complexities that came with caring for a man. "Baby, you have no idea what you want, do you?" His voice had turned warm, and she felt him move in beside her. "There's a part of you that wants to go down there, and a part that wants to run back into the apartment and use our daughter like a shield between us. I get that." There was not an ounce of frustration in his tone, merely an acceptance of her state of mind. "I don't like feeling this way. I don't like being on a clock. I need more time.
Yeah, I get that too. But I've learned I have to work with what I have. I don't know what comes after this. Once they move me, I don't know when I'll see you. I haven't tried to do what I wanted to do. I haven't kissed you or held you, but you have to know I wanted to. I thought it was best if I didn't hurt you again.
I think that ship has sailed.
She turned to him, emotions rolling inside.
I think I'll miss you in a way I didn't before, and that's going to be hard. I'll worry about you.
She already did. How would she feel when they were half a world away?
I don't know what to do. I'm utterly and completely paralyzed when it comes to you. I expected this would be easy.
You expected you could walk in, identify my comatose body, and walk away without looking back. You thought you could get some closure. If I was a good man, I would give it to you, but I'm not. I'm not selfless enough to let you go. I'm going to make it hard. I want a place in my daughter's life, and I want a place in yours. She let her head fall forward, the weight of the decisions she had to make hitting her hard. She had to weigh the danger that surrounded Tucker with what it would mean for Violet to know her father. She had to decide if he even was the man she'd fallen for years ago, or some new person wearing his skin. She had to figure out if it mattered, because she had strong feelings for this version of the man, feelings that went deep and ran true. A warm hand covered the nape of her neck. Tell me what's going through your head. Let me help you.
It's too much.
She wanted. She longed. She couldn't seem to let herself have him because every question she managed to answer brought up 3 more.
I can't decide. I want you to kiss me. I want to be with you, but I can't decide everything. I should know what I want, right?
He shook his head. No. You don't have to know everything right this second. You don't have to decide everything. We don't have to know what we're going to end up being to each other right this second, but we do have to decide what we want tonight. I want you, Ronnie. I want to remember what it feels like to make love to you. She wanted that too, but it seemed like a huge step. Hey, let me kiss you. That's all you have to decide this second. Let me kiss you and hold you, and we'll figure out what comes next. He leaned over, his lips brushing the shell of her ear and sending delicious shivers down her spine. Or you can make the decision to simply be with me this evening. Let me take control, and you don't have to think of another thing all evening. You'll let me take care of you. You can stop me at any time, but my only goal for the whole night is to make you happy, to make some memories. I don't have many of those, and I want so badly to have memories of you, of us. Ronnie, I'm leaving, and I won't see you again for a while, but I also know that I won't be able to have any other relationships because somehow, now that I've seen you, I'm yours. I always was. Let me take care of you. Let me show you how good it can be to let me take control. She was always in control. She had to be. She had to hide and protect. It had been years since she'd truly relaxed. What had her mother said? Comfort was different when it came from a lover. He would be gone soon. She would have to sink into building a new life, finding a new self. Even if this was nothing more than goodbye. She wanted it.
Yes.
The minute she said yes, his whole body seemed to come alive. He could have her. She'd given him permission, and he trusted her to know her mind. He absolutely knew his. Tag's words had played through his head all day. She wasn't a prize. She was a partner. even if only for a night. He'd had so little joy that he couldn't turn it away even if he would ache over her the rest of his life. He let his hands sink in her hair, tugging it out of the scrunchie that held it. I want your hair down. When we're playing, I want it around your shoulders. I want to be able to fist it and turn you this way or that. Do you understand? Her eyes came up, and he could see plainly what he was saying had an effect on her. She wanted to sink into this, to be able to follow his lead without thinking. She needed to relax, but couldn't give herself permission. He could do that for her. Ronnie, do you know what I want you to do? She stared up at him. What? I want you to stop thinking about anything but me and what I'm going to do to your body. I'm going to touch you and taste you and do everything I can to bring you pleasure, to make you forget there's anything but the two of us in the whole world. For a few hours, we're going to tune everything out. Violet. He shook his head. Your mom is taking care of Vi. She's safe and happy and won't notice you're gone. And don't tell me you should tell your mother where you're going. While you weren't watching, she made several incredibly juvenile hand gestures to let me know I should get you in bed at the earliest opportunity. I believe she thinks you need to get laid. She turned the sweetest shade of pink. Oh, my God. He couldn't help the grin that came over his face. Hey, I'm glad she approves. Otherwise, I have no doubt she would cock-block me in genuinely terrifying ways. So Vi is fine. Now come here. Do you want to go to my apartment? Or do you want to play? I don't understand what you mean when you talk about play, she admitted, the words coming out on a breathless tumble. But she wanted to. It was there in her husky tone, and it was definitely there in the way her nipples poked against the thin material of her t-shirt. Luckily, he knew exactly where to go. Follow me. He started down the walkway to the elevator, her hand in his. He could feel the blood thrumming through his body, beating in time with the music from below. Where are we going? Ronnie asked, her eyes wide. If he had more time with her, he would teach her that she didn't have to ask. He would be so good to her she would simply follow him, knowing anywhere he took her would be good for her. But he'd burned her once. There are rooms downstairs, privacy rooms. They're built for play, but we'll be alone. We have to walk through some of the scenes. Are you okay with that? He didn't want to shock her. It was normal for him. He'd seen so many butt plugs in his life they were a normal part of any landscape for him. But Ronnie was more sheltered. Everyone was probably more sheltered. She glanced over as the elevator doors opened, and she seemed to come to a decision. She tugged on his hand. I'm fine if everyone else is. It's weird, but it doesn't seem bad. He pressed the button to take them to the club level before pulling her into his arms, bumping their bodies together. It isn't bad. It's fun, and it's taught me a lot about how to communicate. I learned very quickly that I was meaningless in life unless I was obedient. I was nothing but a test subject, and whether I lived or died didn't matter, as long as I provided the doctor with data. But here, I learned that nothing works in this world if I don't talk about what I need, if I don't tell the people around me what I think. I need you to talk to me. I know I said you didn't have to think, but you do have to feel. And that's what scares me, she admitted. But I think I'm more afraid that you're the only man who ever made me feel this way before. And if I don't take this time with you, I won't ever meet anyone who can make me feel again. He kissed her, his mouth lingering on hers even as the elevator doors opened. I promise no matter what happens, that I'll do everything I can to get back to you and Vi. Now don't think about us being separated again. We're together tonight, And that's what matters. And don't look too hard to your left, because there's a lot of penises hanging out. A lot. Her head swung to the left, and she gasped. "Hey, Ronnie." Owen grinned as he walked by. He had a plaid tossed over his shoulder. Tucker was certain at some point it had been wrapped around his body, but now it simply covered his left shoulder and not any part of his dick. "Hi." The greeting came out on a squeak. "I'm glad to see your parts survived my mom." She winced. "That came out wrong." Owen laughed. "They've recovered quite nicely. You two have fun. I've got a Sassenach to plunder." He shook his head. "Ariel gave her those books. Don't let that one read. Women get funny ideas when they read." He looked down at Ronnie, hoping the incident hadn't embarrassed her. She had a hand over her mouth, and her eyes were filled with laughter. She let her head fall against his chest. "We can never tell my mom. She'll want to be down here, and I can't. I can't with her. I can deal with your brothers walking around with their willies hanging out, but not my mom." He didn't think he could ever come down to the club if he thought his mother-in-law was there. And she wouldn't be a sub. Sandra would be ordering around everyone, whip in hand. He'd just thought of her as his mother-in-law when he'd promised himself he wouldn't think past the night. He leaned over and slid his arm under Ronnie's knees. She wasn't wearing shoes, only a pair of fluffy socks. Soon she wouldn't be wearing anything at all. He strode over the familiar path that wound through the beautiful indoor forest that formed the heart of the garden. He moved quickly because he was breaking club rules, but he knew Damon wouldn't mind. They weren't going to be on the dungeon floor for long. Off to his left, he saw Damon standing with his wife, Penny, watching a scene playing out in one of the spaces. The big Brit gave him a nod as he strode by. "It's pretty here," Ronnie said, her arms around his neck. She seemed far more comfortable now that he was holding her. She looked around with eager eyes. Getting acquainted with the dungeon would have to wait. He wanted her to himself. He wanted a night where there was no one in the world except him and her. In the morning, he would have to play his dangerous game. He would meet his contact and pass off the... "Tucker, are you okay?" He hadn't realized he'd stopped in the middle of the path. The whisper of that first night with her, the one in Paris, had slammed into him. If he let himself go, he would get sick, and this would all be over. He would spend the rest of his time with her lying in a freaking bed, and he didn't want that. There would be time enough to force his brain to work when they were apart. He walked on, leaving the past behind. He hoped. "I'm fine." There were frosted sliding glass doors that led to the privacy rooms. Nina Blunt was sitting in the place where the dungeon monitor usually stayed. It was a small station in front of the hall that led to the privacy and specialized playrooms. From here, it was like the club didn't exist. There was a big desk with security monitors trained on the entrances and exits of the garden. "So there are rooms to have sex in? Doesn't everyone live here?" Ronnie asked as he approached the station. "Not everyone. There are plenty of members who don't live and work here, but you'll see why even the ones who do like the privacy rooms." He nodded Nina's way. "Which rooms are open?" Nina was a pretty woman who'd come to McKay, Taggart & Knight straight out of Interpol. She wasn't dressed for play at all. She was in yoga pants and a t-shirt, like she'd come from the gym. Her auburn hair was in a high ponytail. "I think 3's the only one being used, but I'm just filling in. The monitor tonight is also a security guard, and something's going on in the garage. I was told it was nothing to worry about, but still, here I am. Hello, Veronica. I see you didn't feel like putting on a bustier and heels. I don't understand why fetwear can't be more comfortable. I'm protesting until Damon declares yoga pants and trainers proper costume for the dungeon floor." "We'll be in 4. It was the room furthest from the dungeon. It was also the most romantic of the rooms. They each had a theme, played to some fetish, but the fourth room was simpler. It was still stocked with anything a top could want, but there was a gauzy feel that would appeal to Ronnie. And to him.
I will mark that down for when our friend comes back.
Nina gave him a jaunty salute.
Carry on.
He did. He carried Ronnie right to the door and swept her inside.
Oh, this is pretty.
She looked around as he set her on her feet. A large four-poster bed dominated the room. Dark wood contrasted with the luxurious dove-gray cover, and big fluffy pillows hid the restraints he could use to tie her down. Tell me how I made love to you the first time. He knew he shouldn't dwell on the past, but he wanted his memories of her, even if they were merely stories she told him. He'd learned about himself through her, about who he used to be, and it hadn't been all bad. He'd protected her. He'd had a heart. He'd loved her. It was why he'd moved too soon. He should have taken his time.
Stay with me.
Her hands were on his cheeks.
Don't go wherever it is you go when that look hits your face. You're right about everything. We need this time together. Let me tell you. Rebecca said it helps if I tell you what happened. I was so nervous that first time.
Because you were scared of me. She shook her head.
No. Because I was afraid I wouldn't be enough. We had been dancing around each other, and then you kissed me for the first time, and I knew I wanted to try with you. But I was still nervous when you asked me to go to Paris. I was afraid you wouldn't really want me. But you did. You told me I was beautiful, and I believed you.
You are beautiful. You are so fucking gorgeous to me. He let his hands find her hair. He loved how much of it there was, that he could get wrapped up in it. He loved the color and how it shone when the sun hit it.
I was surprised at how different you were when we were alone. Not that you were mean to me when we weren't, she said.
Her hands moved to his shoulders.
You could be short with everyone around you.
But not you. She shook her head.
Never me. You told me once I would get you in trouble. That you had a plan, and I wasn't in it.
He seemed to have a lot in common with his former self. But I couldn't stay away any more than I can now. Take off my shirt. I want you to touch me. Her hands went to the hem of his t-shirt, and she dragged it up and over his head. The minute her hands were on his skin, he breathed a sigh of relief. He realized it had been days since he relaxed. Not since the last time he'd kissed her had he felt like himself. He placed his hand over hers, holding it to his heart.
You kissed me for a long time. You liked your hands in my hair then, too,
she said, staring at his chest like she could find something there. Her free hand brushed over the worst of his scars.
I didn't realize it at the time, but you took control that night. I liked it because nothing felt awkward. You showed me what you wanted. You focused on me in a way no one ever had before. It wasn't like I'd never had sex, but it felt so different with you.
She frowned suddenly.
You've forgotten everything. Do you know how...
Ronnie, I've had sex since I was rescued. He couldn't lie to her again. I wish now that I hadn't, but I came out pretty damn desperate. She shook her head.
It's okay. I can't imagine what you went through. You should know, though, that I haven't. My sister died shortly after you left. Were taken. And then I was pregnant. I haven't had sex in years.
Because he'd hurt her, and she'd grieved, and she'd raised their baby. He kissed her forehead, tenderness welling inside him. I'll take care of you for as long as I can. I'll be in your bed and in your life as much as I can. Let me show you. Take off your clothes for me, and I promise you'll know exactly how I feel about you." She hesitated. He couldn't let her insecurity take over again. If he'd thought she was afraid, he would back off, but that wasn't what this was about. "Ronnie, we should put some boundaries into place. If things get to be too much, you tell me to slow down or to stop. I'll do it. But unless you say those words, I expect you to obey me." Her nose wrinkled. "I don't like that word." "Well, it's the only time I'll use it, since any other time I'll lay down and let you walk those pretty feet all over me. You can order me around during the day, and I'll complete every task you set for me. But when Vi's in bed and we're alone, you're mine. Now take off your clothes, baby. I want to see you. It's all I've been able to think about for days. Do you know what I do while Rebecca runs her millions of tests? I think about your breasts. I think about how soft they'll be against my palm. I think about playing with your nipples. I think about finally tasting that pussy of yours. And then Rebecca yells at me because I get hard as hell." Her whole face lit up. This was how to handle her. She could be grim. She needed to laugh and let her light out instead of hoarding it because she was worried the world would go dark. She took a step back, and there was a lovely blush to her face as she dragged the tank top over her head, revealing her breasts. They were every bit as gorgeous as they'd been in his head. "Turn around." She bit her bottom lip, but did as he requested, giving him her back. He moved in behind her and let his hands slide around her, cupping her breasts and dragging her against him. It was the easiest way to get his hands on her breasts, to surround them and feel them against his palms. He loved the shudder that went through her. "Did I touch your breasts that night?" She moved against him, not in any attempt to get away. No, she slid her body along his as though trying to tempt him. "Yes, you touched me everywhere. You were incredibly thorough." He could have told her she didn't have to do a damn thing to tempt him except exist. "Tell me how it made you feel." Her head fell back as though she'd already surrendered completely. "Sexy. It made me feel wanted. I would go through the days working and studying, and somewhere along the way, I forgot what it meant to have a life outside of work. I forgot I was anything but an employee trying to fit in. Then I would look at you, and I would remember I had a body and a soul, and I wanted you to feed both of them. I knew you were the one who could. I tried to tell myself it would only be sex, but I always knew it was more." He could feel the way her nipples had gone rigid. He memorized the softness of her breasts. Her skin was silky and warm, and her breasts filled his hands like they'd been made for each other. "I assure you it was more for me. It meant so damn much to me that even her erasing my memory couldn't take you entirely from me. I knew you were important the minute I saw you." "You told me then you wanted me the minute you saw me. You said I was the one good thing that happened to you. And you still are. I got lucky, Ronnie. I found a family here, but I haven't truly belonged until I opened my eyes and you were there." He let his fingers find her nipples and twisted them lightly. She gasped, a throaty sound that went straight to his cock. "You pinched me." She sounded so surprised he almost laughed. He eased off, but licked the shell of her ear. "And how did that make you feel?" "Horny, Tucker. Everything is making me crazy horny, and you know it." He chuckled. Oh, she was fun. She would be so much fun to torture. "I'm going to do worse. Take off your pants and get on the bed. I'm going to tie you up."
Her gaze went distinctly suspicious. "You're going to make me wait, aren't you? Do you know how mean that is?"
"You were always impatient." He knew it somehow, but he didn't pursue the memory. It was knowledge that was written on his brain, nothing more. The more he allowed himself to accept these moments, the more they came to him. The best things in life take time, and if you don't do what I ask, we'll have to start talking about punishment. Her lips curled up, and he loved how relaxed she was now.
"You're going to spank me?"
"Only if you don't mind me." She shoved her pajama bottoms off her hips.
"Fine. But only because I'm horny and I think you'll spend way too much time on the spanking. But later it might be fun."
Her eyes found his, a serious expression taking over.
"You need this now. You took control then, but I think that was your nature. This is different. You need this to feel safe, and I want to give that to you. You're safe with me. Tie me up. Do what you want to me. I trust you."
She turned and walked to the bed, every movement graceful. She laid herself down in the middle of the big bed and offered up her wrists. This was exactly what he needed, what he'd been craving since that moment when he'd awakened and realized she was here with him. He'd needed her looking up at him like he was some kind of savior, like he was worthy. She was laid out like a feast for a starving man. "God, you're beautiful." He stared at her for a moment before joining her on the bed. He pulled the first restraint out from its hiding place and slid it around her wrist, securing it.
"Sneaky,"
she said, watching him. She pulled against it, testing it. He gently restrained her other hand and then eased off the bed. She might be impatient, but now that he had her here, he found he wanted to take his time. His cock was dying, but he was in control, and he intended to show her exactly how focused he could be. He opened the door to the armoire, revealing how prepared Damon Knight liked his playrooms to be.
"What's that?"
Ronnie asked. "You can't play without toys," he replied. There were impact toys of all kinds, each one cleaned and cared for by the employees who worked on the club side of Damon's business. He wasn't going too far out tonight. He ignored the canes and floggers and whips. They would need far more time to talk and decide what she was interested in and what she couldn't handle. He selected the thing he knew she would enjoy. He opened the packaging on the large feather.
"A feather?"
Ronnie asked.
"That's kinky, but not what I expected."
He didn't intend to do what was expected of him. Not anymore. It would take a bold approach to get out of the web he found himself caught in, but he would do it all for her. "Close your eyes, and keep them closed." Her eyes shuddered, and she seemed to relax. He climbed on the bed with her, leaving his jeans on because he didn't trust himself to take them off. He could only be so patient. He turned the feather over so the pointed end was placed against the notch at her neck, and he started to slowly drag it down her body. Her eyes flickered open.
"That wasn't what I was expecting."
He bet she wasn't expecting this, either. He reached with his free hand and tweaked her nipple. "Close your eyes, or I'll get a mask for you." Her eyes drifted closed. He didn't need to see her eyes to know that anticipation was building inside her. It was there in the way she bit her bottom lip, in how tight her nipples were, and how her legs slid against one another restlessly. She wanted, and he intended to make sure she begged before she got. He turned the feather over and let the soft side skim her skin. "How many times did I make love to you that night?" She gasped as the feather fluttered over one breast and then another.
3 times. No, 4. You didn't let me leave the apartment. You made me wait while you grabbed pizza and wine, and I wasn't allowed to put my clothes on. I stayed there in bed waiting for you.
I was a strategic thinker, he replied, brushing the feather over her belly. Even if he'd been a bastard in those days, he'd had a few good ideas. He wanted to keep her naked as often as possible. She didn't need clothes around him. He brought the feather down to her pussy and let it brush over her bare skin. You shaved. Did you do that for me? She squirmed slightly, holding on to the bonds that kept her in place.
I told myself it was because I needed to give a damn about grooming, but yes, I did it for you. I did it last night when I was pretty sure I wouldn't be able to hold out any longer.
He relished the idea of her running a razor over her pussy, making it soft and neat. Did you shave for me the first time? She nodded.
I wanted to be sexy for you. Honestly, I'm not good at, trimming down there. Gardening is a skill I don't have, so it's easier when I want to be pretty to shave that sucker all the way off. You seemed to like it then.
Oh, so I got this sweet peach in my mouth then, did I? Did you like it when I ate your pussy? She was breathless, her hips moving as if they remembered what had happened that night.
Yes. You could do that again. You probably should do that so you can maybe remember.
She made him smile. So I should eat this sweet pussy as part of my therapy. Is that what you're saying? She nodded, her lips curling up.
I'm definitely saying that. I'm sure your doctors would concur.
He moved down, shifting so he was between her legs. He could smell her arousal, and it did crazy things to his cock. He needed to make sure she came because once he got inside her, he wasn't sure how long he would last. Need pounded through him, but he couldn't give in. He wanted this time to be every bit as meaningful as the first. God, he was competing against himself sexually, but damn if he didn't want to win. He teased the feather against her pussy. That was the night we made Violet. He kind of wanted to do that again. He wanted to see her pregnant, hold her and take care of her while she carried their child. He wanted to be at her side, letting her break his hand when she delivered. He wanted those late nights where neither of them could sleep because their daughter had her days and nights mixed up.
Hey, that is 100% true. And you need to wear a condom because your sperm are serious. I was on the pill, Tucker. The pill. It's a pretty damn good method of birth control, but your swimmers got through all of it. I see that look in your eyes. You're thinking about leaving me another parting gift, but you better not put another baby up there until you can be with me.
She stared at him, her hands in bondage and a bit of pure crazy in her eyes. And Tucker was able to let go of the sorrow that had welled. There wasn't a place for it here. This was their time to rediscover each other, and he knew exactly how he wanted to do that. He set the feather aside. He had something else he could caress her with. His tongue, his fingers, his cock. I will remember that always. My sperm are just as insistent on finishing a mission as I am. He lowered himself down, placing his mouth right above her core. He glanced up, and she was staring down at him, all the humor having fled in favor of pure desire. He'd told her to keep her eyes closed, but he wanted her to watch this. He very slowly dragged his tongue over her pussy, gliding over her up to her clitoris. A deep shudder went through her and he settled in. He relearned her taste and smell and the silky feel of her thighs clamping down around his head. He loved every desperate sound she made as he licked and tongued her. He took his time, letting her wash over his every sense. His cock throbbed, and he wouldn't be able to wait much longer. He gently thrust his fingers deep inside her pussy as he sucked on her clit.
Her whole body went rigid, and she cried out his name. Tucker, not Stephen. Tucker was the one who claimed her now. It was Tucker she would be with. He got to his knees and shoved his jeans down, freeing his cock, and then remembered he had to cage that sucker again. He fished the condom out of his pocket. He'd been carrying the damn thing around for days, hoping and praying she would trust him enough to let him in her bed. "You were so eager the first time, too." She was staring at him. "I loved that you couldn't wait. Please make love to me." It was a request he wasn't about to refuse. With shaking hands, he managed to get the condom on, tossing the wrapper to the side. "Yes, but then we slow down. There's a shower behind that door, and I'm going to take you there and lick every inch of your body clean before I get you dirty again. And I'm going to get you out of those jeans and get my mouth on your cock," she promised with the sweetest smile. "You didn't let me do that last time. I think you should order me to suck your cock, sir." He groaned, because if she kept talking, he would come before he even had a chance to get inside her. "You've got topping from the bottom down, but I think you're also a wise woman, so I might have to follow your advice. God, you're beautiful." She spread her legs and looked like a sex goddess lying there. She was in bondage, but she didn't look like a woman who wasn't in control. She was powerful, and she knew exactly what she wanted. Him. Nothing in all of his life had ever made him feel the way that look in her eyes did. He pressed himself against her pussy and vowed to do anything he had to do to get back to her. Her legs wrapped around him, and he thrust deep. She held on to the bindings, but her eyes were on him. He stilled inside her, savoring the sensation of all that heat surrounding him. He lowered himself on top of her, finding her lips and kissing her with need, the need to brand her while he bound himself to her, to possess and be possessed, to belong to her. He groaned and positioned himself again, wanting to hit her clit with every thrust. He moved in and out, watching her every expression until he was certain he'd hit the right spot. When her breathing changed and her whole body tightened as though she was fighting to keep him there, he knew he could let loose. He thrust in, over and over, sliding against that one spot that could bring her the most pleasure, pressing down on her clit with his pelvis until her legs were a vice around him, and she cried out all over again. Then it was his turn. He felt his balls draw up, and a tingling at the base of his spine. The world went soft around him, and all that mattered was her. He let go, the orgasm flowing through him until he couldn't hold himself up a second longer. He slumped down, letting his head find her breasts. This was his place. He'd finally found it. Since the moment he'd awakened to that bright light and all the pain MacDonald could give him, he'd been looking for this feeling. "I would put my arms around you, but you tied me up." Ronnie sighed, a deeply content sound. He would have to fix that, because he definitely wanted her arms around him. "I'll see what I can do about that, baby. We have a shower to get to." "Good, because I think I have a feather up my butt," she admitted. He started to laugh, and then groaned because there was a knock on the door. He kissed the tops of her breasts. "This room is occupied. Go away." This was what happened when non-professional dungeon monitors took over. He would bet Nina had run the minute the guard had come back, without even bothering to mention they were in here. The door came open, and he cursed. "Hey, I said we're in here." Nina shoved her way through anyway. "I know you're here. The problem is, so is MI6. They're raiding the garden, and they're looking for you." Tucker cursed again. His night in heaven had just gone straight to hell.
Chapter 8. 5 minutes later, Tucker's heart was still racing as he eased out the door, one hand in Ronnie's.
They can't see us?
Ronnie stared at the glass doors. No, the glass in the doors are specifically made to look like they filter light, but they don't, he explained. You can't even see shadows through them. When Damon said he wanted that part of the club to be private, he meant it. But obviously we can't go out that way. We open the doors and they'll know we're here.
But we're trapped.
Ronnie sounded shaky. She'd been calm, but he could sense the panic bubbling under her surface. She was terrified. He'd brought her here. He was the reason she was scared, but her hand was in his like he could save her. He had to save her.
There's always a way out, Nina said. I've just got to make sure it's safe for us to go. Damn it. I forgot there's someone in room 3. I don't know who it is.
She was about to knock on the door when it came open, and Solo walked out, her eyes wide as she realized she wasn't alone.
It's got a sauna,
Solo said, a tote bag in her hand.
Steam is good for my skin.
Is Ezra in there? He'd always known they were probably doing it.
No, he's not, Solo replied. No one is in there. I really was using the sauna. Damon said it was okay as long as I didn't linger in the dungeon area. Ezra isn't there tonight. He was working with Big Tag on something. They told me I wasn't invited to their boys' club, hence the sauna. Well, while you were relaxing, MI6 decided to raid the club. I think we figured out who was sniffing around your place the other night,
Nina pointed out. Solo's eyes went even wider.
No. Fuck. If they're here, they want Tucker. Is there a way out? Can they get in here? I locked the doors when I realized what was happening, Nina explained. But I have to make sure we can get out of here. Can you watch these two?
Solo settled her bag on her shoulder.
Yes, but you need to know that if that's really MI6, they'll be able to get in if they want to. Where's Jax?
Nina was backing up, moving to the end of the hallway.
Hopefully he's on the move. I got a code red on my cell a few minutes after I locked us down, so I have to think Tag knows what's going on. I'll be back. If it looks like they're coming in.
Solo nodded.
I'll stash them somewhere and create a holy ruckus.
I would rather have a gun than hide, Tucker said. He needed to make sure Ronnie was protected. Nina shook her head and pointed to a space next to the guard stand. He knew it well, since he'd taken many shifts working that particular station. From here he could see the security monitor. Usually it was focused on the exits and entrances, but Nina had switched it over. Probably the minute she realized something was going wrong.
No, it's best we don't even look threatening if they catch us. What are you going to do? Shoot up MI6?
That was the problem. That was precisely why Damon had his hands up. From Tucker's vantage point, he could see the boss talking to a man in a suit. Damon was calm, but there was no question about how pissed off he was. Solo moved close to the monitor.
Can we get audio?
Tucker flipped the switch that allowed them to hear. If you would allow my wife and the others to get dressed, we could have this conversation in a civilized fashion, Damon said. Or is this how you conduct business since you took over MI6, Rupert? Nina put a hand on his shoulder.
I'm going to check on something, and I'll be right back. Stay with Solo. You can't go out there. If they take you into custody, they don't need us anymore. I want you to think about that before you play the hero.
He nodded tightly and looked back at the monitor. The man named Rupert was dressed in a tailored suit, and despite the late hour, there wasn't a hair out of place. I conduct business in an entirely different fashion from my predecessor, and that means I don't allow anyone to harbor dangerous fugitives under my nose. Nigel might have trusted you, Knight, but I do not. I don't care what's going on here. Have all the deviant sex you like, but you won't do it with criminals in the building. Solo looked his way.
That's the new head of Damon's old division, Rupert Milburn. They were not friends. I knew they were getting impatient. I never imagined they would try something like this. Damon is going to be so pissed. I was unaware there were criminals here, Penny said, standing next to her husband. She was wearing a corset that pushed her breasts up and a teeny-tiny thong. Damon, did you invite criminals to our party? Rupert frowned her way. Now, Mrs. Knight, I was told you used to be an excellent agent. I suppose this is what happens when you consort with the wrong type. I'm talking about the men you call Jax Seaborn and Tucker Jones. Obviously, those are aliases, but we can sort all of that out during our interrogations. If you surrender the men to me now, I won't hand you over to the police for conspiracy. The minute his name was mentioned, Ronnie gasped and put a hand to her mouth. It's okay, he promised. We can hear them, but they can't hear us. It's going to be okay. Damon was staring down Rupert. You won't hand me over to the police at all. If you do that, you would have to hand over Jax and Tucker, too. Or are you planning on lying to the police? You're not here to arrest them. You want to study them. You're tired of waiting. What prompted this? And why is German intelligence here? It was Solo's turn to gasp. Damn it. I knew they were talking. Beck's going to kill me. If I get you captured, Beck is literally going to kill me. Tucker held a hand up to ask for silence. He wanted to hear what Rupert was going to say. Also, unlike my predecessor, I find value in allies, the Brit said. We're working with BND because they have some of the same problems we have. They keep getting caught in your bungling. What happened in Munich was unacceptable. Not only did your team give up the intelligence to the Americans, you got a former German agent killed in the process. And that wasn't the first time you fucked the Germans over. Did you think they would forget what you did in Berlin? Ronnie's hand squeezed his. So this is some form of payback, raiding my home, coming after my employees. Damon was obviously trying to buy them all time. Ronnie looked up at him. What are we going to do? I can't leave Violet. I should go out there. That wasn't going to happen. If they get their hands on you, I'll do anything they ask, so if you go out there, I will too. Tears fell on her cheeks. You can't. You don't know what they'll do to you. They would question him. Likely they would be polite in the beginning, but they could use force if they didn't get what they wanted. They would test him. They would toss him to the wolves if he wasn't useful to them. I don't know what they'll do to you either. Her eyes had gone wide, and she pointed to the screen. Is that who I think it is? A shiver went up his spine as he realized who she was talking about. Arthur Dwyer stood in the background. Why would a representative from Kronberg be here? She asked. Solo's eyes had narrowed, a feral look on her face. German intelligence is working with Kronberg. Bastards! We had a deal. We shared information with those assholes because they promised when the time comes they'll help us take down Kronberg. This isn't just about me. This is about Ronnie, too. Fuck. They're here because they're worried two of their puzzle pieces got together and we're going to figure it out. So many things started to fall into place. The whole time you thought you were hiding, they knew exactly where you were. They kept tabs on you, and they kept tabs on me. They've kept to the shadows until now. Why? Because now we're together. They think we know where that list is. I stole it. You went with me to Paris where I was trying to hand it off to someone, maybe the CIA. MacDonald convinced them at the time that you didn't know anything, but they still watched you. Now we're in the same place, and they won't take the chance that we'll get the intel and run with it. Ronnie, if Kronberg is here, they want you every bit as much as they want me. I think he's right, Solo said.
Where's Mr. Taggart? Rupert was asking on the monitors. Damon shrugged. Probably halfway across the Atlantic. He went home. So Tag was on the move. He hadn't been in the dungeon earlier. He'd been in the offices working and talking to his family on the computer, and according to Solo, plotting with Ezra. He would have been informed quickly if there was a problem. The discussion continued, but he turned to Veronica and put his hands on her shoulders. It's going to be okay. No matter what happens, I'm going to get you out of this. She took a deep breath and nodded.
Okay. But Tucker, I don't know anything. I haven't been lying. I didn't even look at your laptop that day. It was password protected, and then Dr. McDonald had Robert take it. I don't know anything, and that means I'll be useless to them.
Oh, she wouldn't be useless. She would be a tool to get him to do whatever they wanted. They needed to get out of the building and regroup. A woman in a suit stepped into the frame and whispered something in Rupert's ear that had him turning to Damon again. Would you like to tell me where Sandra Croft and her daughter are hiding? My employee found the apartment they're living in, but sadly, we seem to have missed them. Ronnie breathed a deep sigh of relief.
Ian got them out.
Violet would have been Big Tag's priority. Having kids around meant every person in the building had to make those kiddos their first priority. Ian would have made certain Ollie was safe as well.
Then Beck is likely trying to secure River and Jax,
Solo surmised. She nodded, never taking her eyes off the monitors.
He'll do whatever he can to save his men. Tucker, tell me you left your phone upstairs.
He hadn't been thinking about the fact that someone could potentially track him. He'd left his phone behind because he hadn't wanted anything to interrupt his moment with Ronnie. It's upstairs. But Solo, we've got the clothes on our backs. That's all.
It'll be fine, Solo promised. I assure you Beck's thought about this. He's planned for a worst-case scenario. It's what he does. He's going to get you out of here. He'll do whatever it takes.
Her faith in her ex-husband was a palpable thing.
They got Vi out?
Ronnie was crying, but it was obvious she was trying so hard to keep it together. He hauled her close. Tag will protect her. He knows that she's the first priority. You and Vi are everything.
Oh no,
Solo breathed as she watched the monitor.
Oh no.
Tucker's heart threatened to stop as Jax showed up on the screen. His hands were restrained behind his back, and he had a defiant look on his face. He was shoved along, but managed to stay on his feet. Jax. They'd caught Jax. A sob came over the monitor, and River ran into the frame, tears streaming down her face.
Please, he didn't do anything. Please.
Oh, there are several governments who would disagree with you, Rupert said. Mr. Seaborn, I think it's time we had a talk. This might go easier on you if we could also interview your friend Tucker Jones. And his girlfriend. Arthur Dwyer's voice was tinged with a German accent. His words were soft, but they sent a chill through Tucker. We would like very much to talk to Veronica Croft. River was being restrained by another of the operatives, though at least they seemed to have some compassion for her. She was crying, looking to her husband like the world was falling apart. Since when is MI6 in the business of acting as mercenaries for corporations? Damon asked, his voice as cold as ice. That seemed to trip Rupert up momentarily. His expression went blank, as though he'd never considered the possibility that anyone would view his actions in such a way. His expression went stubborn. I'll work with anyone who will help me keep a potentially dangerous drug off the streets. Do you understand what could happen if our enemies gain control of McDonald's research?
I know Kronberg would like their research back, Robert said. Rupert turned on him. You should count yourself lucky you have friends in high places, Mr. McClellan. Otherwise I would be bringing you in with Seaborn. I don't believe for a moment it wasn't you involved in those South American robberies. But I'm not allowed to touch you. And Mr. Shaw was the sad sack idiot who got caught right before everyone was safe again. So I'm going to ask again. Where are Tucker Jones and Veronica Croft? I have to save him. He couldn't let them take Jax. This was everything they'd been running from since the moment they'd been rescued. This was the nightmare scenario. Maybe they'll take me and let Ronnie go. She doesn't know anything. You don't know anything either, Ronnie argued. Solo stepped in front of him. I can't let you go out there. I know you're scared, but you're not thinking. We've got one way to save Jax, and that's to give them what they want. There was only one thing they could want from him. The intel that I stole from Kronberg. The intel we think you stole, Solo qualified. It's obvious that MI6 has been compromised. I can work this from a diplomatic angle. I can open talks with some people I know on that side. I'll let them know I've got you, and I won't share anything with them unless they prove to me they're not going to hurt Jax. He'll be in a holding cell, but I can make sure they don't do anything to him physically. I will lie and tell them you know where the intel is, but you're holding out on me. It'll buy us a couple of days. A couple of days. They would only have a handful of days to ensure Jax didn't become someone's punching bag. Or their medical experiment. He felt numb. How could everything have gone wrong in the course of mere minutes? His whole world had crumbled because he'd been stubborn. If he hadn't told Jax to hold off on Ronnie, Vi, and Sandra's papers, they would be safe in Dallas now. He and Jax likely would have been moved out of London, and Jax wouldn't be in custody. But no. He'd wanted time to convince Veronica he wasn't the selfish monster he'd been in the past. Dr. Razor, who made people bleed. Jax would be the one bleeding this time. His brothers were the ones in the line of fire, and he was in a nice, comfortable hidey-hole. Rob stood in front of Ariel, but she was whispering in his ear, likely giving him her assessment of everything that was going on around them. Owen was beside Robert, Rebecca behind him, both with their eyes on Jax and River. He should be out there with them. Tucker isn't here, man, Jax said with a shake of his head. That asshole left days ago. He took one look at that woman, and his brothers didn't matter anymore. He suddenly had better things to do, you know. He didn't pay attention at all to our bro code. Their code. Jax had been the first of them to get married. The code meant no one was more important than their wives. They had to pick their wives over everything and everyone else. Jax was giving him permission to go. We all told him he should honor the code, Rob said. But you know how men can get around a woman. They lose their damn heads, Owen agreed. That's why we have the code in the first place. Real men honor it. They were all telling him to go. To protect Veronica. That's not the intelligence I have, Rupert said with a frown. The last I heard, he was in a comatose state and unable to be moved. I think he's still here. Fan out and check again. I want every single person in this building questioned. Please escort Mr. Seaborn to the cars. We'll question him at headquarters, and then see what happens. There are several agencies who would love to speak with him. River screamed her husband's name as they started to haul him out. Let me go with them. I did it too. I did all of it. I was with him. Jax looked back, a desperate plea in his eyes. Owen, please. This was another part of their code. Owen had on a proper kilt this time, and he looked somewhat primal as he wrapped an arm around River and hauled her over his shoulder. Rebecca was crying too, as River fought to stay with her husband. It was too much. Too much emotion. Too much fear. Too much guilt. His system threatened to shut down. Rupert's men flanked out, some of them going toward the elevators. They would find Nick and Haley in their cozy apartment, likely wrapped in each other's arms. They would find Walt in the lab, either working on some project or trying to dominate the world via video game. Steph, Brody, and their son Nate were out for the evening. They would return home to a different world. He'd brought it all down on their heads. The way is clear. We need to move. Nina was back, and she wasn't alone. Tucker, don't you take another step near that fucking door. I already lost one of you tonight. I didn't get to Jack's in time. Ezra was with her, a grim look on his face. He stared at Solo. You were in the sauna? You okay? She nodded. Beck, I'll fix this. But I can't do it if they haul me in too. An American agent on British soil. They won't believe I was here visiting friends. Then you come with us, and when we're safe, I expect you to do what you have to do to protect Jax, he said. But now we need to move. The tunnels are clear. He hadn't even known there were tunnels. He'd lived here for almost 2 years, and no one had mentioned there were escape routes. Of course, they hadn't exactly needed escape routes until the Lost Boys had shown up, since they hadn't been engaged in criminal activity before that. Was he going to bring the whole company down? This tunnel leads to a parking garage in the financial district, Nina explained. Diamond has a small flat there, and a car we can use. But we have to move now. We've got 2 go-bags. Ezra picked up his, and there's always one in the tunnel. Solo frowned. Mine is upstairs, but I've got a couple of guns and my secure phone with me. Where's my mom and Vi? Ronnie stepped forward. I can't leave without them. Ian has them. We split up when we realized what was going on. They're in a secure location, but he can't get here, Ezra said. He's holed up with them, and when it's safe, he'll follow. But we have to go now. He had to leave his brothers to the wolves? He had to leave his daughter behind? Ezra stepped in front of him. I know what's going through your head, but you cannot help Jax. We gain nothing by giving you up. They'll take him anyway, and they'll take Veronica. They'll use both of them to get you to do anything they ask. We've got to figure out if you stole that intel. I did. He sounded hollow to his own ears. I know I did. I can see the thumb drive in my hand. When he closed his eyes and thought about it hard, he could feel it there. Feel the morning sunlight on his face. The hint of a breeze that had run through the city that morning. He'd walked down the street with a spring to his step because it was almost over. Then we'll find it, and we'll bargain with it, Ezra said, jarring him out of his thoughts. But